โลกร้อนไม่ใช่แค่อากาศที่ร้อนขึ้นแต่มันคือสภาพอากาศที่แปรปรวนผิดเพี้ยนไปจากเดิมมากอย่างที่อเมริกาเพิ่งเจอพายุทอร์นาโดและยังมีคลื่นความร้อนรุนแรงที่ทำให้คนเสียชีวิตเพิ่มมากขึ้นทุกปีเมย์เป็นคนรักธรรมชาติมากค่ะการได้อยู่กับธรรมชาติคือการรีเฟรชที่ดีที่สุดเราไม่อยากเสียสิ่งที่เรารักไปและไม่อยากให้ภัยธรรมชาติมาเป็นฝันร้ายที่คอยคุกคามเรามากขึ้นเรื่อยๆถ้าโลกมันร้อนก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
วิธีที่เราจะลดสภาวะโลกร้อนสำคัญที่สุดคือการปลูกต้นไม้โกงกลางเนี่ยเป็นซูเปอร์ฮีโร่ของพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนเลยล่ะซึ่งมีคุณสมบัติดูดซับก๊าซคาร์บอนถึง3 เท่าของต้นไม้บนดินเริ่มต้นจากใบมาที่กิ่งก้านลงมาถึงลำต้นลงไปถึงรากและลงไปถึงพื้นดินต้นไม้หรือต้นโกงกลางที่ปลูกในพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนของเราทุกต้นประชาชนในพื้นที่จะร่วมด้วยช่วยกันดูแลอย่างแน่นอนคุณปลูกต้นไม้จะกลับมาปกป้องคุณกลับมาดูแลคุณ
เรา2 คน4 มืออาจจะปลูกได้ไม่กี่ต้นแต่ถ้าร่วมมือกันหลายๆคนจะยิ่งลดโลกร้อนได้มากขึ้นมาช่วยกันปลูกลดร้อนเพื่อโลกของเรากันนะคะ
SCG Passion for Better
จีนพี่พร้อมแล้วไปกันไปไหน
จีนเนี่ยนะว่างเมื่อไหร่ต้องมาชาร์จแบตที่ทะเลได้ดำน้ำดูปะการังได้ดูปลาสวยๆเลิฟเลย
ที่ดูข่าวมาเขาว่าโลกร้อนน้ำทะเลก็จะร้อนขึ้นปะการังเริ่มตายพายุเต่าทะเลสัตว์ทะเลหลายชนิดก็จะอยู่กันไม่ได้ด้วย
ถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
โลกประกอบด้วยพื้นน้ำถึง3 ส่วนพืชที่อยู่ในทะเลก็สามารถกักเก็บก๊าซคาร์บอนไดออกไซด์ได้มากที่เราเรียกว่าบลูคาร์บอนหญ้าทะเลกักเก็บได้มากกว่าพืชบนบกถึง4 เท่าและปลดปล่อยออกซิเจนออกมาส่วนของรากก็ไปดูดซับคาร์บอนที่ละลายในพื้นดินใต้ทะเลหญ้าทะเลยังเป็นแหล่งอาหารของสัตว์ทะเลหายากหลายชนิดและก็ยังเป็นแหล่งอาศัยของสัตว์น้ำไวอ่อนให้ชาวบ้านทำการประมงได้ต่อไป
มาช่วยกันปลูกเพื่อปกป้องทะเลที่เรารัก
โลกไม่ร้อนทะเลไม่ร้อนถ้าช่วยกันปลูกลดร้อนตั้งแต่วันนี้
ตอนนี้ไทยอยู่อันดับ 8 ของโลกจากการจัดอันดับประเทศที่ได้รับผลกระทบจากภาวะโลกร้อน
หน้าร้อนที่ผ่านมาเนี่ยบ้านเราก็แรงที่สุดในรอบ40 ปีเกษตรกรที่พึ่งพาลมฟ้าอากาศเนี่ยเขาก็ใช้ชีวิตกันลำบากมากถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลดปัจจัยสำคัญในการเลือกปลูกต้นไม้ท้องสำรวจพื้นที่ว่าต้นไม้ท้องถิ่นมีอะไรบ้างเขาจะเหมาะสมกับพื้นที่ตรงนั้นก็เปรียบเสมือนคนจะไม่มีการปรับตัวเลยแล้วเขาจะเป็นต้นไม้ที่เติบโตได้เร็ว
จริงๆแล้วต้นไม้ยังต้องการให้คนปลูกเพื่อลดโลกร้อนเป็นปอดให้พวกเราได้หายใจปลูกแค่คนละต้นเราจะได้มีป่าเพิ่มขึ้น
หลังจากปลูกแล้วเราจะดูแลให้เขารอดและเติบโตเป็นต้นไม้ที่จะสู้การเปลี่ยนแปลงของสภาพอากาศ
เลือกต้นที่ใช่จะปลูกที่ไหนก็ช่วยลดร้อนได้เริ่มปลูกวันนี้เพื่อโลกที่เย็นลงในวันพรุ่งนี้
SCG Passion for Better
Vårt förslag till innovationstävlingen Infralighter Awards har vi döpt till Bifrost. Teamet bakom bron är konstruktörer, arkitekter och landskapsarkitekter förankrade i innovativa mindre kontor i samarbete med Kungliga Tekniska Högskolan och Stockholms stad som behovsägare. Men bron är utvecklad för att passa i många olika kontexter, även i mindre kommuner. Generellt är efterfrågan från kommunerna stort på nya lösningar för broar för att kunna nå klimatmålen. Broar har även stor potential att bidra till gestaltande och rumskapande kvaliteter i det offentliga rummet. Bron är en gång- och cykelbro, volymmässigt konstruerad till över 90% i naturens lättaste konstruktionsmaterial, trä. Det ger en bro med 40 meter spännvidd en vikt på under 20 ton. Brons relativa lätthet gör även angörningen mer flexibel. Fundamenten skulle till exempel kunna utgöras av naturstensblock eller gabiljoner av återvunnen sprängsten. Även om trä är återbrukbart och koldioxidneutralt så är skogen en resurs vi bör hantera varsamt, varför mycket arbete har fokuserats på att minimera materialanvändandet och utveckla smarta lösningar för att optimera möjligheten till underhåll och ökad livslängd, samt möjligheten till återbruk. Det här har givit en modulär konstruktion med flertalet parallella bärande element där varje element vid behov enkelt kan bytas ut utan att bron behöver demonteras eller stängas av under en längre tid. För att ytterligare underlätta underhåll och minska kostnader och uppförandetid består bron av korta standarddimensioner. Det gör att de ingående delarna i bron lätt kan hanteras med mankraft och finns tillgängliga i det vanliga byggsortimentet. Det öppnar även möjligheten att jobba med återbruk av tidigare använda träelement från till exempel gjutformar. Stål används i strategiska lägen för att ta dragkrafter för ökad livslängd och flexibilitet samt snabbt montage. Vi har utvecklat en enkel knutpunkt som är applicerbar på samtliga möten mellan träelementen i bron. Knutpunkten har dessutom potential att tillverkas i stora upplagor och användas vid en mängd olika brokonstruktioner. Ytterligare en innovation är att använda TRP-plåt som bärverk för farbanan. TRP-plåten i kombination med tvärgående slitplank stabiliserar bron och skyddar underliggande tvärbalkar. Likt regnbågen i mytologin kan vår bifrost lätt anpassas till en mängd olika hinder och spännvidder beroende på det specifika behovet för platsen. Utöver träets goda inverkan på miljön har det dessutom en lugnande och stressreducerande effekt på vår hjärna, vilket i kombination med en harmonisk gestaltning gör att det interiöra rummet upplevs ombonat och tryggt. Belysningen är integrerad mellan de parallella bärverken för att slippa ytterligare belysningsstolpar. Tack vare användning av standarddimensioner, smarta och flexibla knutpunkter och den höga andelen trä så är bron 100% återbrukbar i sin helhet eller var del för sig i en ny kontext och kan därför med sitt smäckra uttryck potentiellt förgylla många platser i framtiden.
ไปแข่งที่ต่างประเทศนานๆคิดถึงบ้านบ้างไหมครับ
คิดถึง
คิดถึงเวลาที่ได้กลับบ้านคิดถึงความร่มเย็นสบายอยู่มุมไหนก็ยิ้มได้คิดถึงรอยยิ้มมีคนที่ทำให้เราหายเหนื่อยเวลาหิวก็อิ่มท้องอิ่มใจ
คิดถึงเวลาได้หยุดพักได้อยู่กับเพื่อนๆได้นั่งเล่นมองท้องฟ้าไปเรื่อย
คิดถึงเวลาที่ได้เอนตัวทิ้งเรื่องวุ่นวายข้างนอกชาร์จพลังเต็มที่คิดถึงทุกเวลาที่ได้กลับม
ากลับมาทำให้ป่าชุ่มชื้นสมัยก่อนไม่มีน้ำป่านี้แล้งมีฝายมีน้ำก็มีป่าก
ลับมามีอยู่มีกินมีน้ำมีป่าก็มีกิน
กลับมาอุดมสมบูรณ์เห็นป่าต้นโกงกลางหญ้าทะเลอยู่กันอุดมสมบูรณ์ก็ดีใจครับเขาเป็นแหล่งอนุบาลแหล่งอาหารให้สัตว์เยอะแยะเลย
กลับมามีบ้านปะการังก็เหมือนบ้านของปลาปลามีบ้านปลาอยู่ได้เราก็มีระบบนิเวศที่สมบูรณ์ครับ
ไม่มีน้ำไม่มีบ้านของป่า
ไม่มีป่าไม่มีบ้านของสัตว์น้อยใหญ่
ไม่มีสัตว์น้อยใหญ่ไม่มีระบบนิเวศที่ดี
ไม่มีธรรมชาติที่สมบูรณ์ไม่มีบ้านของเราบ้านใครใครก็รักจึงว่าโลกก็เหมือนบ้านนะเป็นบ้านหลังใหญ่ด้วยมาดูแลบ้านหลังนี้ในแบบที่ทุกคนทำได้ไปด้วยกันนะคะ
SCG Passion for Better
โลกร้อนไม่ใช่แค่อากาศที่ร้อนขึ้นแต่มันคือสภาพอากาศที่แปรปรวนผิดเพี้ยนไปจากเดิมมากอย่างที่อเมริกาเพิ่งเจอพายุทอร์นาโดและยังมีคลื่นความร้อนรุนแรงที่ทำให้คนเสียชีวิตเพิ่มมากขึ้นทุกปี
เมย์เป็นคนรักธรรมชาติมากค่ะการได้อยู่กับธรรมชาติคือการรีเฟรชที่ดีที่สุดเราไม่อยากเสียสิ่งที่เรารักไปและไม่อยากให้ภัยธรรมชาติมาเป็นฝันร้ายที่คอยคุกคามเรามากขึ้นเรื่อยๆ
ถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
วิธีที่เราจะลดสภาวะโลกร้อนสำคัญที่สุดคือการปลูกต้นไม้โกงกลางเนี่ยเป็นซูเปอร์ฮีโร่ของพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนเลยล่ะซึ่งมีคุณสมบัติดูดซับก๊าซคาร์บอนถึง3 เท่าของต้นไม้บนดินเริ่มต้นจากใบมาที่กิ่งก้านลงมาถึงลำต้นลงไปถึงรากและลงไปถึงพื้นดินต้นไม้หรือต้นโกงกลางที่ปลูกในพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนของเราทุกต้นประชาชนในพื้นที่จะร่วมด้วยช่วยกันดูแลอย่างแน่นอนคุณปลูกต้นไม้แต่กลับมาปกป้องคุณกลับมาดูแลคุณ
เรา2 คน4 มืออาจจะปลูกได้ไม่กี่ต้นแต่ถ้าร่วมมือกันหลายๆคนจะยิ่งลดโลกร้อนได้มากขึ้น
มาช่วยกันปลูกลดร้อนเพื่อโลกของเรากันนะคะ
SCG Passion for Better
จีนพี่พร้อมแล้วไปกัน
ไปไหนจีนเนี่ยนะว่างเมื่อไหร่ต้องมาชาร์จแบตที่ทะเลได้ดำน้ำดูปะการังได้ดูปลาสวยๆเลิฟเลย
ที่ดูข่าวมาเขาว่าโลกร้อนน้ำทะเลก็จะร้อนขึ้นปะการังเริ่มตายพยูนเต่าทะเลสัตว์ทะเลหลายชนิดก็จะอยู่กันไม่ได้ด้วย
ถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
โลกประกอบด้วยพื้นน้ำถึง3 ส่วนพืชที่อยู่ในทะเลก็สามารถกักเก็บก๊าซคาร์บอนไดออกไซด์ได้มากที่เราเรียกว่าบูคาร์บอนหญ้าทะเลกักเก็บได้มากกว่าพืชบนบกถึง4 เท่าและปลดปล่อยออกซิเจนออกมาส่วนของรากก็ไปดูดซับคาร์บอนที่ละลายในพื้นดินใต้ทะเลหญ้าทะเลยังเป็นแหล่งอาหารของสัตว์ทะเลหายากหลายชนิดและก็ยังเป็นแหล่งอาศัยของสัตว์น้ำไวอ่อนให้ชาวบ้านทำการประมงได้ต่อไป
มาช่วยกันปลูกเพื่อปกป้องทะเลที่เรารัก
โลกไม่ร้อนทะเลไม่ร้อนถ้าช่วยกันปลูกลดร้อนตั้งแต่วันนี้
ตอนนี้ไทยอยู่อันดับ 8 ของโลกจากการจัดอันดับประเทศที่ได้รับผลกระทบจากภาวะโลกร้อน
หน้าร้อนที่ผ่านมาเนี่ยบ้านเราก็แรงที่สุดในรอบ40 ปีเกษตรกรที่พึ่งพาลมฟ้าอากาศเนี่ยเขาก็ใช้ชีวิตกันลำบากมากถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
ปัจจัยสำคัญในการเลือกปลูกต้นไม้ต้องสำรวจพื้นที่ว่าต้นไม้ท้องถิ่นมีอะไรบ้างเขาจะเหมาะสมกับพื้นที่ตรงนั้นก็เปรียบเสมือนคนจะไม่มีการปรับตัวเลยแล้วเขาจะเป็นต้นไม้ที่เติบโตได้เร็ว
ริงๆแล้วต้นไม้ยังต้องการให้คนปลูกอยู่เพื่อลดโลกร้อนเป็นปอดให้พวกเราได้หายใจปลูกแค่คนละต้นเราจะได้มีป่าเพิ่มขึ้น
หลังจากปลูกแล้วเราจะดูแลให้เขารอดและเติบโตเป็นต้นไม้ที่จะสู้การเปลี่ยนแปลงของสภาพอากาศ
เลือกต้นที่ใช่จะปลูกที่ไหนก็ช่วยลดร้อนได้เริ่มปลูกวันนี้เพื่อโลกที่เย็นลงในวันพรุ่งนี้
SCG Passion for Better
Vårt förslag till innovationstävlingen Infralighter Awards har vi döpt till Bifrost. Teamet bakom bron är konstruktörer, arkitekter och landskapsarkitekter förankrade i innovativa mindre kontor i samarbete med Kungliga Tekniska högskolan och Stockholms stad som behovsägare. Men bron är utvecklad för att passa i många olika kontexter, även i mindre kommuner. Generellt är efterfrågan från kommunerna stort på nya lösningar för broar för att kunna nå klimatmålen. Broar har även stor potential att bidra till gestaltande och rumskapande kvaliteter i det offentliga rummet. Bron är en gång- och cykelbro, volymmässigt konstruerad till över 90% i naturens lättaste konstruktionsmaterial, trä. Det ger en bro med 40 meter spännvidd en vikt på under 20 ton. Brons relativa lätthet gör även angörningen mer flexibel. Fundamenten skulle till exempel kunna utgöras av naturstensblock eller gabiljoner av återvunnen sprängsten. Även om trä är återbrukbart och koldioxidneutralt så är skogen en resurs vi bör hantera varsamt. Varför mycket arbete har fokuserats på att minimera materialanvändandet och utveckla smarta lösningar för att optimera möjligheten till underhåll och ökad livslängd samt möjligheten till återbruk. Det här har givit en modulär konstruktion med flertalet parallella bärande element där varje element vid behov enkelt kan bytas ut utan att bron behöver demonteras eller stängas av under en längre tid. För att ytterligare underlätta underhåll och minska kostnader och uppförandetid består bron av korta standarddimensioner. Det gör att de ingående delarna i bron lätt kan hanteras med mankraft och finns tillgängliga i det vanliga byggsortimentet. Det öppnar även möjligheten att jobba med återbruk av tidigare använda träelement från till exempel gjutformar. Stål används i strategiska lägen för att ta dragkrafter för ökad livslängd och flexibilitet samt snabbt montage. Vi har utvecklat en enkel knutpunkt som är applicerbar på samtliga möten mellan träelementen i bron. Knutpunkten har dessutom potential att tillverkas i stora upplagor och användas vid en mängd olika brokonstruktioner. Ytterligare en innovation är att använda TRP-plåt som bärverk för farbanan. TRP-plåten i kombination med tvärgående slitplank stabiliserar bron och skyddar underliggande tvärbalkar. Likt regnbågen i mytologin kan vår bifrost lätt anpassas till en mängd olika hinder och spännvidder beroende på det specifika behovet för platsen. Utöver träets goda inverkan på miljön har det dessutom en lugnande och stressreducerande effekt på vår hjärna, vilket i kombination med en harmonisk gestaltning gör att det interiöra rummet upplevs ombonat och tryggt. Belysningen är integrerad mellan de parallella bärverken för att slippa ytterligare belysningsstolpar. Tack vare användning av standarddimensioner, smarta och flexibla knutpunkter och den höga andelen trä så är bron 100% återbrukbar i sin helhet eller var del för sig i en ny kontext och kan därför med sitt smäckra uttryck potentiellt förgylla många platser i framtiden.
ไปแข่งที่ต่างประเทศนานๆคิดถึงบ้านบ้างไหมครับ
คิดถึง
คิดถึง คิดถึง คิดถึง
คิดถึงเวลาที่ได้กลับบ้านคิดถึงความร่มเย็นสบายอยู่มุมไหนก็ยิ้มได้
คิดถึงรอยยิ้มมีคนที่ทำให้เราหายเหนื่อยเวลาหิวก็อิ่มท้องอิ่มใจ
คิดถึงเวลาได้หยุดพักได้อยู่กับเพื่อนๆได้นั่งเล่นมองท้องฟ้าไปเรื่อย
คิดถึงเวลาที่ได้เอนตัวทิ้งเรื่องวุ่นวายข้างนอกชาร์จพลังเต็มที่คิดถึงทุกเวลาที่ได้กลับม
กลับมาทำให้ป่าชุ่มชื้นสมัยก่อนไม่มีน้ำป่านี้แล้งมีฝายมีน้ำก็มีป่าก
ลับมามีอยู่มีกินมีน้ำมีป่าก็มีกิน
กลับมาอุดมสมบูรณ์เห็นป่าต้นโกงกลางหญ้าทะเลอยู่กันอุดมสมบูรณ์ก็ดีใจครับเขาเป็นแหล่งอนุบาลแหล่งอาหารให้สัตว์เยอะแยะเลย
กลับมามีบ้านปะการังก็เหมือนบ้านของปลามีบ้านปลาอยู่ได้ เราก็มีระบบนิเวศที่สมบูรณ์ครับ
ไม่มีน้ำไม่มีบ้านของป่า
ไม่มีป่าไม่มีบ้านของสัตว์น้อยใหญ่
ไม่มีสัตว์น้อยใหญ่ไม่มีระบบนิเวศที่ดี
ไม่มีธรรมชาติที่สมบูรณ์ไม่มีบ้านของเราบ้านใครก็รักจิว่าโลกก็เหมือนบ้านนะเป็นบ้านหลังใหญ่ด้วยมาดูแลบ้านหลังนี้ในแบบที่ทุกคนทำได้ไปด้วยกันนะคะ
SCG Passion for Better
โลกร้อนไม่ใช่แค่อากาศที่ร้อนขึ้นแต่มันคือสภาพอากาศที่แปรปรวนผิดเพี้ยนไปจากเดิมมากอย่างที่อเมริกาเพิ่งเจอพายุทอร์นาโดและยังมีคลื่นความร้อนรุนแรงที่ทำให้คนเสียชีวิตเพิ่มมากขึ้นทุกปี
เมย์เป็นคนรักธรรมชาติมากค่ะการได้อยู่กับธรรมชาติคือการรีเฟรชที่ดีที่สุดเราไม่อยากเสียสิ่งที่เรารักไปและไม่อยากให้ภัยธรรมชาติมาเป็นฝันร้ายที่คอยคุกคามเรามากขึ้นเรื่อยๆ
ถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
วิธีที่เราจะลดสภาวะโลกร้อนสำคัญที่สุดคือการปลูกต้นไม้โกงกลางเป็นซูเปอร์ฮีโร่ของพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนเลยล่ะซึ่งมีคุณสมบัติดูดซับก๊าซคาร์บอนถึง3เท่าของต้นไม้บนดินเริ่มต้นจากใบมาที่กิ่งก้านลงมาถึงลำต้นลงไปถึงรากและลงไปถึงพื้นดินต้นไม้หรือต้นโกงกลางที่ปลูกในพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนของเราทุกต้นประชาชนในพื้นที่จะร่วมด้วยช่วยกันดูแลอย่างแน่นอนคุณปลูกต้นไม้จะกลับมาปกป้องคุณกลับมาดูแลคุณ
เราสองคน4 มืออาจจะปลูกได้ไม่กี่ต้นแต่ถ้าร่วมมือกันหลายๆคนจะยิ่งลดโลกร้อนได้มากขึ้น
มาช่วยกันปลูกลดร้อนเพื่อโลกของเรากันนะคะ
SCG Passion for Better
จีนพี่พร้อมแล้วไปกัน
ไปไหนจีนเนี่ยนะว่างเมื่อไหร่ต้องมาชาร์จแบตที่ทะเลได้ดำน้ำดูปะการังได้ดูปลาสวยๆเลิฟเลย
สวัสดีค่ะสวัสดีแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะแล้วก็สวัสดีผู้ชมทางบ้านด้วยนะคะวันนี้มายณัชมัย ฉันทศิริพันธ์
Good morning welcome to Redesign Sustainable Forestry Forum at SCG headquarters jointly hosted by the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm and the Swedish Embassy in Bangkok. invited a number of speakers to share knowledge about sustainable forestry design. And we will learn about how harvesting timber go hand in hand with sustainable forestry management. Let's start by visiting this booth on the origin of A4 paper, which is in demand. Pulp is derived from eucalyptus trees. Let's visit the booth of SCGP. คุณแมว from SCG Packaging Business. We see your booth with young saplings. Can you share?
ทัวร์สยามฟอเรสตี้นะฮะนี่ของ SCGP นะครับก็ได้เห็นกล้าไม้ก็คือต้นกล้าไม้อยู่ครับ
So these are eucalyptus saplings. We have improved the strains to make them appropriate for soil in Thailand. So the R&D to improve the plant varieties with good management. Within 4 years, the output will be 20 ton. We photograph it, and then our AI will process and generate data and additionally there is the surplus as tool for forest management. So here we showcase the technology where we use satellite images in combination with AI to monitor growth of plants leading to carbon credit calculation. We work with Siam Forestry under SCG Packaging Business to determine and predict productivity as a first step for carbon credit calculation. And of course, indispensable is water resource management. Because forests thrive on water, we will visit the Rak Phu Pha Mahanati project of SCG, which is integrated water resource management. As we know, Thailand and many other countries, we have seen events of floods and droughts impacting people's life, particularly in Thailand where agriculture is the main source of livelihood, and therefore SCG has implemented this integrated water management project from watershed to sea. In the watershed areas, we work with the community to build check dams to rehabilitate ecosystems, wildlife, flora and fauna equivalent to people's supermarket. And once we secure water sources, in the past, communities rely on rain-fed agriculture. Now, we deploy CPAC water solution to manage water resources, securing, keeping, and use water wisely for farming all year round. As a result, livelihoods improve. People can stay in their homelands without migrating to urban centers for jobs, while contributing to local development. So water is the genesis of life. Water is life. That is so true. Now to see man-made activities such as fisheries, discharge of chemicals, hurt and harm fish habitats, coral reefs. So we collaborate with stakeholders, public-private sectors, academia to implement the coral reefs, coral homes project based on where we use 3D painting to make fish home and provide shelters for coral larvae, and then reefs grow within these 3D printed homes. And these coral homes are 3D printed using hybrid cement that is eco raw material, as we use less cement clinkers, less emissions as well. And also we absorb carbons under tree planting project, which is one of the easiest way to deal with global warming. We also grow tree grasses, which are food for dugongs as well as functioning as carbon sink. So this is indeed from upstream to downstream, from land to shore to sea. Thank you. And now we visit the booth of CPAC. Nong Sai will share with us CPAC's experience in water management. So, SCG has collected knowledge, what we've done in collaboration with communities and other stakeholders to develop solutions. In terms of sourcing, we deploy the help of technology such as drone solutions in the past. If we cannot see the pictures, then we just draw something on paper and guesstimating. But drones can give accurate data and give us very accurate information about water flows, for example, helping designers to come up with more accurate solutions that allow for effective monitoring as well. And other solutions such as check dams can be part of water storage solutions. There are also innovative materials such as concrete sheet, concrete tarpaulins, which have to be lightweighted, installed in the mountains for water storage. And you wait 4 hours, these materials set in and it can function as water reservoir. CPAC water management solutions focus on shared values amongst our own suppliers along with communities and other stakeholders. Thank you, Nong Sai, for sharing with us about water solutions. Next, SCG is implementing green circularity as well. So, green circularity is geared towards net zero carbon emissions and alternative clean fuels. We use farm scraps such as sugarcane leaves, corn husks, the forest itself has leaves and scraps. There are challenges to make use of these raw materials because of transport challenges, raw materials processing, and so we look at the agroforestry model to stabilize feedstock for biofuel and innovations and technology to manage and handle raw materials to become energy pellets and develop into all other fuel alternatives with higher heat rates to replace fossil fuel, cut emissions, and taking us faster towards net zero target. So nothing comes to waste. Forest, water, all things are circular. Thank you, Kun Jan, for explaining SCG Green Circular Way. Next, I would like to take you to the other side of the world, where wood and timbers are part of people's daily life, internalized as their way of life. Kun M will take us through this section of exhibition. My name is Chotikon. I'm trade officer with the Swedish Embassy in Bangkok. Very beautiful woods Can you tell us how Sweden arrives at 70% coverage, forest coverage? So this Wood Life Sweden exhibition outside of the meeting hall demonstrates how wood can be utilized to transform cities. How do we do it? Wood is renewable and circular as material, and it makes people feel close to nature. Beyond feeling good for people, wood can capture carbon, therefore good for climate and the world. So contributing to climate action, so apart from capturing carbon, contributing to climate action, Sweden is big on wood construction, public space built from wood. How do they do it?
สร้างขนาดใหญ่ได้ไม่ใช่เพียงบ้านเล็กๆเท่านั้นนะคะสามารถเป็นอาคารเป็นศูนย์วัฒนธรรม
So wood can be used as a building material for building large structures as well as homes. In buildings, we normally have spaces where people can gather and promote social well-being. And so in this sense, wood really can be a materials that we introduce back into our shelters and public spaces. And this is the Södra Hall in the north of Sweden. It also serves as a cultural center with a theater, a music hall, and a conference facilities. Everything is built using wood, including the beams, columns, and surface materials. Because the materials are sourced locally, we can cut on transportation costs and promoting employment for local residents, and thus reducing the need for local people to move to urban centers to find work. I understand that urbanization in Sweden is rapid at the moment with influx of people coming into the city, so this will contribute to slowing down flows of people into the cities. And this is another project using woods to build wind turbines to produce renewable energy. This is a novel and innovative approach that other countries can learn from Sweden. Sweden aims to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045, so in the next 22 years. So they aim to achieve carbon neutrality in 2045. So that's the public declaration with very high ambitions concerning carbon neutrality. So wood can be used to build big and small items. It can form the basis for promoting urban growth. And it is also a very environmentally friendly building materials. And in this picture, you've seen wood being used to build this residential complex in Uppsala, about an hour from Stockholm. Solar panels are installed on the roof. It also brings nature closer to residents. And here you see the rows of bike racks, again promoting people to commute by bikes. And so the all-integrated residential designs really promote green and clean lifestyle, and so that people can live happily, healthily, and at the same time ensure our environmental well-being as well. So I'd like to thank Kun Am very much for sharing with us, for joining us. Isn't that exciting to hear how Sweden has promoted a use of wood and promoted its use as building material. And now let's look at how we can also turn rubber trees into wood products after they mature. So instead of cutting it down when it matures after 25 years and let it go to waste, Plant Toys has used rubber wood, has turned rubber wood into toys for children. Kun Bon from Plant Toys is here with us. Look at all these fun items here. Can you tell us how Plant Toy came about and the ideas concerning these toys? So we are a subsidiary of Plan Architecture Company Limited, which works on architectural designs and graphics designs. Plan Group was created with the vision to build a better world, and Kun Withun, who's the founder of Plant Toys, also a co-founder of Plant Toy. He studied architecture and he comes from Trang. Trang is his homeland, and he saw rubber plantation. After about 25 years, the trees have been tapped and fell down, and Kun Withun recognized that there may be some useful functions left yet in the life of rubber trees. And so 42 years ago, Plant Toys was created to transform rubber wood into toys, into creative toys. And I have to say that Trang is one of the top 3 rubber producing provinces, and it's where rubber trees were originally introduced to Thailand. You can see here very colorful items here. The material itself is called plant wood, composed of sawdust. So it's basically a byproduct that we use by mixing it with organic pigment and non-formaldehyde glue. And put them into molds to create these different toys. And with the properties of plant wood, we can create different textures and forms. And with this innovative technique, it will increase the density of the material, and so it wouldn't allow water. It can resist water, and so these items can be put into water without any damage to children. If they want to, they can play these items in the water. So wood textures will not be damaged, and the color will stay. It's because color pigments have already been mixed in the raw material itself. Is very much unlike coating on the external surface technique that we see previously. So the more you use, the more polished the surface will become. So apart from being environmentally friendly, it also it's also safe to children who play with them. If you like to visit the booth, please come to the SCG headquarters to check out these toys. You can also visit plantoys.com website. And for SCG staff, we offer you discounts if you come to buy toys from us today. Well, thank you very much. Let's go to Three for All Foundation booth. When you travel, usually you may drive there or take a plane, get on a plane there, but there's a lot of stress, right? Because it emits carbon dioxide. How can we become more environmentally friendly? Even we travel. And here we have Kun Kwang from Three for All to tell us how can we be part of the effort to protect our world, our planet. Thank you.
I want to reduce my carbon footprint, so what are the actions that Reekhoff's doing? So Reekhoff, the full name. Three for All is under Thailand's work plan of Reekhoff. In Thailand, we focus on fundraising and financing models for forest rehabilitation. We are working in Nan province. The highlight of Nan is its forest cover and being the watershed of Chao Phraya River. And downstream people like us using water from Chao Phraya River, including Bangkokians, benefit from the forest cover of Nan province. How do we make people know? And be part of conserving it. The project focus on incentives against monoculture. If downstream people want to be part of the action, please donate to incentivize farmers from doing monoculture. Throughout 3 years of the project, we continuously monitor. So the donation is 100 baht per tree. This is tax deductible. And with that 100 baht, it can change behavior of farmers and grow diverse trees. We have different models of fundraising. Maybe you donate for hospitals or temples before, but if you are new gen, want to be part of climate action movement, be responsible for your own carbon footprints, you can be part of planting trees. And the farmers under the project will take care of the tree. So 100 baht per tree. So, how to reduce your own carbon footprint? This is one of the options. May I add that we have corporate Facebook, Recoft Thailand. You can get updates from the Facebook, and we are about to launch the trees monitoring. All the donors can log in and follow up on the development of the trees you donate. And the data can be downloaded. We summarize the health of the trees you plant, and we will calculate the CO2 equivalent that the trees can capture. So individuals or corporations can count this as part of your CSR. So I would like to encourage you to join us in Trees for All. So I hope you get interesting information as prelude to Sustainable Forestry Redesign Seminar. So I hand over to the team inside the conference room.
ไปแข่งที่ต่างประเทศนานๆคิดถึงบ้านบ้างไหมครับ
คิดถึง
คิดถึง
คิดถึง คิดถึง คิดถึงเวลาที่ได้กลับบ้าน คิดถึงความร่มเย็น สบาย อยู่มุมไหนก็ยิ้มได้
คิดถึงรอยยิ้ม มีคนที่ทำให้เราหายเหนื่อย เวลาหิวก็อิ่มท้องอิ่มใจ
คิดถึงเวลาได้หยุดพัก ได้อยู่กับเพื่อนๆ ได้นั่งเล่น มองท้องฟ้าไปเรื่อยๆ
คิดถึงเวลาที่ได้เอนตัว ทิ้งเรื่องวุ่นวายข้างนอก ชาร์จพลังเต็มที่ คิดถึงทุกเวลาที่ได้กลับมาก
ลับมาทำให้ป่าชุ่มชื้น สมัยก่อนไม่มีน้ำป่านี้แล้ง มีฝาย มีน้ำก็มีป่า
กลับมามีอยู่มีกิน มีน้ำมีปลาก็มีกิน
กลับมาอุดมสมบูรณ์ เห็นป่าต้นโกงกลางหญ้าทะเล อยู่กันอุดมสมบูรณ์ก็ดีใจครับ เขาเป็นแหล่งอนุบาลแหล่งอาหารให้สัตว์เยอะแยะเลย
กลับมามีบ้านปะการังก็เหมือนบ้านของปลามีบ้านปลาอยู่ได้ เราก็มีระบบนิเวศที่สมบูรณ์ครับ
ไม่มีน้ำไม่มีบ้านของป่า
ไม่มีป่า ไม่มีบ้านของสัตว์น้อยใหญ่
ไม่มีสัตว์น้อยใหญ่ ไม่มีระบบนิเวศที่ดี
ไม่มีธรรมชาติที่สมบูรณ์ ไม่มีบ้านของเรา บ้านใครๆก็รักจิมว่าโลกก็เหมือนบ้านนะ เป็นบ้านหลังใหญ่ด้วย มาดูแลบ้านหลังนี้ในแบบที่ทุกคนทำได้ไปด้วยกันนะคะ
SCG Passion for Better
โลกร้อนไม่ใช่แค่อากาศที่ร้อนขึ้น แต่มันคือสภาพอากาศที่แปรปรวน ผิดเพี้ยนไปจากเดิมมาก อย่างที่อเมริกาเพิ่งเจอพายุทอร์นาโด และยังมีคลื่นความร้อนรุนแรงที่ทำให้คนเสียชีวิตเพิ่มมากขึ้นทุกปี
เมย์เป็นคนรักธรรมชาติมากค่ะ การได้อยู่กับธรรมชาติคือการรีเฟรชที่ดีที่สุด เราไม่อยากเสียสิ่งที่เรารักไป และไม่อยากให้ภัยธรรมชาติมาเป็นฝันร้ายที่คอยคุกคามเรามากขึ้นเรื่อยๆ
ถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
วิธีที่เราจะลดสภาวะโลกร้อนสำคัญที่สุดคือการปลูกต้นไม้โกงกลางเนี่ยเป็นซูเปอร์ฮีโร่ของพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนเลยล่ะซึ่งมีคุณสมบัติดูดซับก๊าซคาร์บอนถึง3 เท่าของต้นไม้บนดิน เริ่มต้นจากใบมาที่กิ่งก้านลงมาถึงลำต้นลงไปถึงรากและลงไปถึงพื้นดินต้นไม้หรือต้นโกงกลางที่ปลูกในพื้นที่ป่าชายเลนของเราทุกต้นประชาชนในพื้นที่จะร่วมด้วยช่วยกันดูแลอย่างแน่นอนคุณปลูกต้นไม้จะกลับมาปกป้องคุณกลับมาดูแลคุณ
เรา2 คน4 มืออาจจะปลูกได้ไม่กี่ต้น แต่ถ้าร่วมมือกันหลายๆคนจะยิ่งลดโลกร้อนได้มากขึ้น
มาช่วยกันปลูกลดร้อนเพื่อโลกของเรากันนะคะ
SCG Passion for Better
จีน พี่พร้อมแล้วไปกัน
ไปไหน จีนเนี่ยนะ ว่างเมื่อไหร่ต้องมาชาร์จแบตที่ทะเล ได้ดำน้ำดูปะการัง ได้ดูปลาสวยๆ เลิฟเลย
ที่ดูข่าวมาเขาว่าโลกร้อนน้ำทะเลก็จะร้อนขึ้นปะการังเริ่มตายพายุนเต่าทะเลสัตว์ทะเลหลายชนิดก็จะอยู่กันไม่ได้ด้วย
ถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
โลกประกอบด้วยพื้นน้ำถึง3 ส่วนพืชที่อยู่ในทะเลก็สามารถกักเก็บก๊าซคาร์บอนไดออกไซด์ได้มากที่เราเรียกว่าบูคาร์บอนก๊าซทะเลกักเก็บได้มากกว่าพืชบนบกถึง4 เท่าและปลดปล่อยออกซิเจนออกมาส่วนของรากก็ไปดูดซับคาร์บอนที่ละลายในพื้นดินใต้ทะเลหญ้าทะเลยังเป็นแหล่งอาหารของสัตว์ทะเลหายากหลายชนิดและก็ยังเป็นแหล่งอาศัยของสัตว์น้ำไวอ่อนให้ชาวบ้านทำการประมงได้ต่อไป
มาช่วยกันปลูก
พื่อปกป้องทะเลที่เรารักโลกไม่ร้อนทะเลไม่ร้อนถ้าช่วยกันปลูกลดร้อนตั้งแต่วันนี้
ตอนนี้ไทยอยู่อันดับ 8 ของโลกจากการจัดอันดับประเทศที่ได้รับผลกระทบจากภาวะโลกร้อน
หน้าร้อนที่ผ่านมาเนี่ยบ้านเราก็แรงที่สุดในรอบ 40 ปี เกษตรกรที่พึ่งพาลมฟ้าอากาศเนี่ยเขาก็ใช้ชีวิตกันลำบากมากถ้าโลกมันร้อน
ก็ต้องช่วยกันลด
ปัจจัยสำคัญในการเลือกปลูกต้นไม้ต้องสำรวจพื้นที่ว่าต้นไม้ท้องถิ่นมีอะไรบ้างเขาจะเหมาะสมกับพื้นที่ตรงนั้นก็เปรียบเสมือนคนจะไม่มีการปรับตัวเลยและเขาจะเป็นต้นไม้ที่เติบโตได้เร็ว
จริงๆแล้วต้นไม้ยังต้องการให้คนปลูกอยู่เพื่อลดโลกร้อนเป็นปอดให้พวกเราได้หายใจปลูกแค่คนละต้นเราจะได้มีปลาเพิ่มขึ้น
หลังจากปลูกแล้วเราจะดูแลให้เขารอดและเติบโตเป็นต้นไม้ที่จะสู้การเปลี่ยนแปลงของสภาพอากาศ
เลือกต้นที่ใช่จะปลูกที่ไหนก็ช่วยลดร้อนได้เริ่มปลูกวันนี้เพื่อโลกที่เย็นลงในวันพรุ่งนี้
SCG Passion for Better
Vårt förslag till innovationstävlingen Infralighter Awards har vi döpt till Bifrost. Teamet bakom bron är konstruktörer, arkitekter och landskapsarkitekter förankrade i innovativa mindre kontor i samarbete med Kungliga Tekniska högskolan och Stockholms stad som behovsägare. Men bron är utvecklad för att passa i många olika kontexter, även i mindre kommuner. Generellt är efterfrågan från kommunerna stort på nya lösningar för broar för att kunna nå klimatmålen. Broar har även stor potential att bidra till gestaltande och rumskapande kvaliteter i det offentliga rummet. Bron är en gång- och cykelbro, volymmässigt konstruerad till över 90% i naturens lättaste konstruktionsmaterial, trä. Det ger en bro med 40 meter spännvidd en vikt på under 20 ton. Brons relativa lätthet gör även angörningen mer flexibel. Fundamenten skulle till exempel kunna utgöras av naturstensblock eller gabiljoner av återvunnen sprängsten. Även om trä är återbrukbart och koldioxidneutralt så är skogen en resurs vi bör hantera varsamt, varför mycket arbete har fokuserats på att minimera materialanvändandet och utveckla smarta lösningar för att optimera möjligheten till underhåll och ökad livslängd, samt möjligheten till återbruk. Det här har givit en modulär konstruktion med flertalet parallella bärande element där varje element vid behov enkelt kan bytas ut utan att bron behöver demonteras eller stängas av under en längre tid. För att ytterligare underlätta underhåll och minska kostnader och uppförandetid består bron av korta standarddimensioner. Det gör att de ingående delarna i bron lätt kan hanteras med mankraft och finns tillgängliga i det vanliga byggsortimentet. Det öppnar även möjligheten att jobba med återbruk av tidigare använda träelement från till exempel gjutformar. Stål används i strategiska lägen för att ta dragkrafter för ökad livslängd och flexibilitet samt snabbt montage. Vi har utvecklat en enkel knutpunkt som är applicerbar på samtliga möten mellan träelementen i bron. Knutpunkten har dessutom potential att tillverkas i stora upplagor och användas vid en mängd olika brokonstruktioner. Ytterligare en innovation är att använda TRP-plåt som bärverk för farbanan. TRP-plåten i kombination med tvärgående slitplank stabiliserar bron och skyddar underliggande tvärbalkar. Likt regnbågen i mytologin kan vår bifrost lätt anpassas till en mängd olika hinder och spännvidder beroende på det specifika behovet för platsen. Utöver träets goda inverkan på miljön har det dessutom en lugnande och stressreducerande effekt på vår hjärna, vilket i kombination med en harmonisk gestaltning gör att det interiöra rummet upplevs ombonat och tryggt. Belysningen är integrerad mellan de parallella bärverken för att slippa ytterligare belysningsstolpar. Tack vare användning av standarddimensioner, smarta och flexibla knutpunkter och den höga andelen trä så är bron 100% återbrukbar i sin helhet eller var del för sig i en ny kontext och kan därför med sitt smäckra uttryck potentiellt förgylla många platser i framtiden.
SCG regards the importance of safety for all our employees and stakeholders as a key component of our organizational culture. In case of emergency, please follow these instructions. In case of emergency, both our fire alarms and emergency lights will be alert all areas. When the signal occurs, you have to go to the fire exit. Use the nearest fire exit. The fire exits are designed for your own safety. You must use only this way to go to the ground floor. After reach the ground floor, follow your coordinator to the assembly point. At the assembly point, your coordinator will check your name and take care of you. Emergency team will proceed of company emergency procedures. Do and don't for your own safety. 1. Do not panic when the fire alarm alerts. Use the nearest fire exit. 2. Do not run. You should walk carefully to prevent an accident. 3. Do not use the elevator. Please use only fire exit. With our concern, SCG regards your safety as most important. Please follow the safety instructions. If you find any unsafe situation, please call Emergency Center 02-586-3191 or your coordinator.
Good morning. สวัสดีค่ะ Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, both of SCG Hall and live streaming all over the world. We are delighted to welcome you all for Redesign Sustainable Forestry, the innovative forest management. I am Pornpatra Chanchaivaravit, or you can call me Prawa, as a master of ceremony for today's event. Redesign Sustainable Forestry Forum is a part of Thailand-Sweden Sustainable Development Week. This forum is co-hosted by Sweden and Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm and the Embassy of Sweden in Bangkok, and partner of SCG, Thai Nordic Country Innovation Unit or TNIU, Thai Management Association or TMA, and the Eco Innovation Foundation. We are aiming to promote the collaborations between two countries, including the public, private, and civil society sectors, as well as the academic in forest, forestry, and wood-related business and industry. Without further ado, I would like to invite Your Excellency, Ms. Butsadi Santipitak, Deputy Secretary Permanent of Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, to give us a welcome remark on stage. Please welcome Your Excellency.
Swadika. Good morning and good morning. Excellency Ambassador Yun Åström Gröndahl, Ambassador of Sweden to Thailand, and of course I've been told that Ambassador Arunrung Phothong Humphreys, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Thailand to Sweden, will be joining us through sending a video message, and of course the representatives of the partners of this very important event, Redesign Sustainable Forestry, the innovative forest management, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed an honor for me to welcome all of you to this very special seminar or a workshop or a delightful week on Redesign Sustainable Forestry, the innovative forest management at the SCG headquarters. And I wish to acknowledge the presence of Kuntana Pumi, the Vice President of SCG and in charge of sustainability. I would like to highlight the word very special because this event is a result of a very close multi-sectoral collaboration between Thailand and Sweden. This event is part of the Thailand-Sweden Sustainability Week, co-hosted by the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm, Sweden, and the Embassy of Sweden in Bangkok. Since 2021, both embassies have explored the possibility of moving forward concrete collaboration on sustainability and innovation between Thailand and Sweden. Our two countries have shared a very close relationship for more than a century, underpinned by the close bonds between our two royal families and the peoples, and through trade and investment cooperation and ties. We will continue to explore the potentials of other areas of collaboration, especially on innovation and sustainability, which are core to the future development. Thailand and Sweden Sustainable Development Forum has been held in this light annually since 2021. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, climate change, ecological degradation, pandemics, the rise in energy price, global food shortages, poverty, hunger are among key transformational factors causing the deterioration of human life and conditions, and which have affected our efforts to fully achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. No one, we believe, can address these complex challenges alone. Countries will need to work together, learn from each other, and exchange best practices to bring back a better, safer, and a greener world. In addition, all stakeholders, ranging from government agencies, business sectors, academia, civil societies, academic institutions, the new generations should continue to engage in this process to achieve the sustainable development. In an effort to engage more stakeholders and to deliver concrete outcomes from this forum, I am pleased that the two embassies have elevated this year's forum to Thailand and Sweden Sustainability Week, where the activities are being physically organized in Thailand from 16th to 23rd of March 2023. Experts and representatives from Swedish business sectors in Sweden have been invited to meet with the representatives from relevant government agencies, universities, business sectors, and civil societies in Thailand. I hope that the stakeholders from both sides will make use of this opportunity to further explore ways to step up concrete cooperation on sustainability. I also encourage relevant agencies and stakeholders to explore the possibility of creating a joint pilot project between Thailand and Sweden, such as through using Swedish forest management models to sustainably restore forests in Thailand. I hope to see this partnership between the companies from both sides working together, for example, on wood construction projects, the implementation of a Swedish concept in wood bio-based city in Thailand, and on other sustainable development projects in this regard. I also hope to see extensive collaboration between our universities, especially on joint research projects on sustainable forestry and sustainable cities. I need not stress enough on the importance of this partnership between our two countries at all levels amongst all sectors, and wish that the stakeholders with all these stakeholders in order to realize and kickstart these pilot projects. I don't think it's an effort that we are reaching for the stars, but I think it is an effort that can best be done together. I'm hopeful of the outcome of Thailand and Sweden Sustainability Week, that it will contribute to Thailand's efforts to become a sustainable country in line with our BCG Biocircular Green Economy model, most notably to realize sustainable forestry in cities and to create more opportunities for new business segments related to sustainability. Excellencies, distinguished guests and participants, I would like to end my remarks by expressing my sincere appreciation to all the partners and all the players in this week who have been actively supporting this project and event, including the Royal Forest Department, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, Digital Economy Promotion Agency or DEPA, GISTA, Chulalongkorn University, Kasetsat University, Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, Asom Sins Institute of the Arts, Thailand Management Association, Thailand and the Nordic Countries Innovation Unit, Siam Cement Group, the Eco Innovation companies, and all the partners that that we have acknowledged today, as well as the Siam Cement Group, the Land Process Company, Plantoys Thailand, Change Fusion, Fine Folk Company, and again the Eco Innovation Foundation of Sweden that has made our activities and this week possible. And last but not least, to all the participants present here and following us online who champion sustainability, may I wish you every success in your deliberations this week. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากค่ะ Tack så mycket.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency Ms. Busadi Santipitak, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand. And please, secondly, please welcome Your Excellency Mr. Åström Gröndahl, Ambassador of Sweden to Thailand, to give us a remark on stage. Please welcome Your Excellency.
Good morning. Good morning. Excellency, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Senior SCG and business representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear forestry and sustainability friends. First of all, let me thank my dear colleague and newly accredited Ambassador of Thailand to Sweden, Arunrung, for inviting the Embassy of Sweden to co-host this event, and also for asking me to deliver these opening remarks. I am indeed very happy that during my tenure here in Bangkok, I have attended the Thailand-Sweden Sustainability or Sustainable Development Forum for 3 consecutive years now, alternating the host between our 2 embassies. It is a great initiative. It is a great initiative that I hope will continue for many years to come. Sweden and Thailand share a long history of close and cordial collaborations. And forestry has from the very beginning played an important role in the Swedish-Thai relations. During the visit to Europe in the year 2440, yes, that's 1897, His Majesty King Rama V paid a visit to Sweden to participate in the General Art and Industrial Exposition in Stockholm. Since Thailand, or back then Siam, had extensive forest resources, the king wanted to learn about the Swedish timber industry, which is why His Majesty ended up visiting southeastern Norrland, an area in Sweden with many sawmills and major rivers used for floating timber. Sweden and Thailand have, in this sense, come full circle today with this seminar on sustainable forestry. We are happy that once again the Thai government has shown an interest in Swedish forestry, the green gold of my country. Forestry is also part of Sweden's competitive circular bioeconomy. Despite a modest 1% of the world's commercial forest areas, Sweden provides 10% of the timber, pulp and paper that is traded on the global market. In 2022, $66 million worth of pulp and paper products were exported from Sweden to Thailand. That is almost 13% of the total Swedish export to Thailand. This makes the forestry sector vital for the Swedish national economy, both in terms of important exports and job creation for people, especially in rural areas. The Swedish government has had a strategic agenda to drive the forestry sector with a long-term and sustainable approach. This propels Sweden to become one of the most advanced and innovative countries in the world within this sector, supplying solutions within everything from pulp and paper to wood cutting and logistics solutions. Dear all, the climate change is indeed the global challenge which requires immediate action nationally, regionally and globally. During the spring of 2023, Sweden is holding the EU presidency. One of Sweden's priorities is a greener Europe. Therefore, the European Green Deal, the EU's strategy to become climate neutral by 2050, is high on our agenda. As recognized by the Paris Agreement, forests play an important role in meeting climate goals by removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing carbon in trees and soils. Our presidency is working in different international fora to promote sustainable forestry and sustainable value chains. At the national level, Sweden's climate ambitions are slightly more ambitious than the EU's. Sweden has pledged to become climate neutral by 2045. And one of the factors making this attainable is the fact that 70% of Sweden is covered with forests, which act as a powerful carbon sink. Sweden has a long tradition of using wood as building material. Apart from favoring our planet's health, using wood in the built environment is believed also to improve our general well-being. Timber is proven to help regulate humidity and improve air quality because of its ability to absorb, store, and release moisture. Even after being cut down, it remains organic and, you could say, a somewhat living thing, almost, which I have always found profoundly fascinating. I know there are other wood nerds in the audience here today. I think you can testify to the same experience. Wooden products give us a sense of calmness, I think, and the feeling of closeness to nature. And in this regard, I'm happy to invite everyone to visit the Wood Life Sweden exhibition displayed just outside this seminar hall. Beautiful exhibition. It features many projects across Sweden. It will show you how architecture, design and urbanism can help reduce the climate impact of buildings in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. Let me conclude my remarks by wishing you all a successful event with many new valuable ideas and connections. And again, let me thank the organizers of this very important and timely event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yoon Åström Gröndahl, for your opening speech and about the sustainability, forestry, and the value chain. Well, for the next, we are welcome for Your Excellency Mrs. Arunrung Phothong Humphreys, Ambassador of Thailand to Sweden, for give us a statement by video presentation.
His Excellency Yoon Åström Gröndahl, Ambassador of Sweden to Thailand, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm is proud to co-host this very important and timely seminar in a physical format this year with the Embassy of Sweden in Bangkok. We would also like to thank our partners from the government and business sectors, including the academia, for making this event possible. Sustainability and innovation cooperation have become a strength of our two countries' relations in modern times. Sustainable development requires us to think and act in synchronization with sustainability of all things, whatever we do. As we are trying to cope with multidimensional challenges, as they say, everything, everywhere at the same time. We should work together beyond our boundaries and look deeper into new solutions that answer future sustainability challenges, not only of those today. This year, we choose sustainable forestry and city development as the main focus of the Thailand-Sweden Sustainable Week. We believe these areas of cooperation are to Thailand and Sweden's competitive advantage, and it can help us respond to tomorrow's challenges in a more efficient manner. Thailand and Sweden have a long history of forestry cooperation which dates back to 1897, or 176 years. His Majesty King Rama V paid a royal visit to Sweden at the invitation of His Majesty King Oscar II of Sweden and Norway to participate in the General Art and Industrial Exposition in Stockholm. With His Majesty King Rama V's vision of Thailand's potential in developing the country's wood industry due to vast forest resources, His Majesty King Rama V chose to visit the northern part of Sweden to learn about the Swedish timber industry, as suggested by His Majesty King Oscar II. Fast forward to the present day. Sweden is the third largest forest-related products exporter in the world, creating an income of over $15 billion per year, while increasing its forest-covered land from 25 to 70% within 100 years. Meanwhile, Thailand is committed to promoting its sustainable economy and industry through circular green or BCG model, of which industry can be one of the driving forces. Therefore, the two countries can share our best practices and learn from one another on sustainable forestry. This seminar provides a platform for relevant stakeholders to exchange best practices in reforestation, forest and biodiversity reservations, sustainable forestry, and also create more networks and business matching between Thai and Swedish wood-related industries. Today's event is part of a long process of our two countries' cooperation to promote sustainable forest management. We, therefore, believe in our collective energy to empower collaboration and innovation to ensure sustainability of our planet. So let's keep it going. Please allow me to continue the rest of my speech in Thai. สวัสดีท่านผู้เข้าร่วมงานทุกท่านนะคะ ดิฉันขอขอบคุณทุกท่านที่ให้
Good morning. I would like to thank you for your participation, and the Thai Embassy intends to hold this as a platform for multi-dimensional cooperation between Thailand and Sweden. Green transition is global priority as manifested in Thailand's BCG model adoption, wherein sustainable forest management and forestry-related industry and innovations will enable Thailand to achieve its BCG aspiration. The Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm has been working with the Swedish forestry authorities, particularly the local forest project, which gives scholarships to participants worldwide to empower communities in forest conservation and utilization, and for forest and community to coexist alongside sustainability, and therefore sustainable forest management is the focus, the theme of our gathering today. Sweden is known for its sustainable forestry management, prioritizing the bond between people and forestry, and this corresponds with King Rabba IX's vision on planting trees inside people's heart. People have to understand why we plant trees. People must appreciate, and if we can enable people to value, to utilize, to appreciate the value of forestry, then sustainable forest management can be in place. Now demands for wood have grown worldwide, and wood is becoming valuable resource, especially when urbanization and construction increasingly turn to wood. The concept of wood city is gaining traction worldwide, and we anticipate this to be the direction in Thailand as well, given new technology and innovations that enable us to optimize wood use. The Royal Thai Embassy in Sweden has invited experts in forest management, wood construction and design to share directions of so-called bio-cities, new business opportunities related to wood construction and sustainable wood and forest industries, as well as inviting public-private civic sectors in Thailand to join the forum on sustainable forest management in Thailand's development context. Our synergy towards sustainability is the approach of how we work. The embassy functions as bridge for synergy, exploring new ways to address sustainable development goals for Thailand to leapfrog in sustainable development. Thank you.
Mrs. Arunrung Phothong Humphreys, Ambassador of Thailand to Sweden. And before we start the presentation and discussion sessions, I would like to invite all executives for a photo session on stage. Firstly, Your Excellency Ms. Butsadi Santipitak, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand. Secondly, Your Excellency Mr. Yoon Åström Gröndahl, Ambassador of Sweden to Thailand. Thirdly, Kun Chana Phumi, Vice President, Sustainability President Office SCG. Fourthly, Kun Wanvira Ratchadawong, Chief Executive Officer, Thailand Management Association. And Kun Dollavi Varanon, Royal Thai Embassy on Stockholm, TNIU. And Mr. Aaron Kaplan from the Eco Innovation Foundation. Please take a photo on stage. Alright, please remain on stage and I will invite all of honorable all speakers on stage to join the second photo shot, please. Excuse me, please, one line, only one line. We will see all the scene for all people. Keep smiling. Please step for avoid the gap. Thank you. Thank you very much. Such a beautiful shot. Thank you so much. All right, for the next stage, we will proceeding to the presentations and discussions on the topic from a nation wreck to a nation-rich forest. A how-to from Swedish model. And let's begin with the first presentation on redesigning forest restorable concept from Mr. Aaron Kaplan, Director of the Eco Innovation Foundation. Please give a round of applause to welcome Mr. Kaplan on stage.
To see which hand I hold it. Hello everybody, my name is Aaron Kaplan and I'm very happy to be here and meet you all. This has been an event that we have been looking forward to since the beginning of the past summer. And thank you, I appreciate it. My background is in green business development and entrepreneurship coaching. So this is what I've been doing, and I'm happy to be here today with a small selected delegation from Sweden. And we're not all from Sweden, but we round off and we say we're from Sweden. And we're here. This is a selected group of specialists covering forestry and to wood industry and architecture. And we're happy to be here to meet a mixed group of participants from you. And we're looking forward to discussing a very interesting concept that is starting to take over the world. And we needed to move much faster, but we'll get into that. So, and the reason we're here is that I had the good fortune to meet SCG in Stockholm, Sweden, just before the summer, and we had a very, they were in Sweden searching for climate solutions, like every company should these days. And I had the opportunity to present a very visionary concept. And I found the representatives to be very open and serious. So From there, with the good help of the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm, we now made it here. So today we'll talk about this concept, and we'll start right now. Oh, went too fast. So this concept revolves around city, forest, climate. City, forest, climate. And the thing to remember throughout this is that we tend today to be very caught up in our different strands of work, our different silos, you could say. But the solutions today, as we'll see, need to be systemic. They need to be end-to-end. And they also need to be turnaround, complete turnaround. So today we'll talk about a systemic climate solution covering forest, city, and climate, and of course people. So let's talk a little bit about these three things first before we go into the actual concept. Climate, I thought I'd just start because, let's see if this is, yeah. So here we have a very well-known curve. We've all seen this now, but it's a little point of departure for me. I started myself being interested in sustainable solutions or sustainability when I started business school in the beginning of the 90s. And in those days there weren't any head of environment or any head of CSR or anything like that. So in business school it was quite radical in those days to talk about sustainability. But if we look at the beginning of the 90s in this curve, you can see that exactly at the time that I started business school in 92 was the time when the UN started the UNFCCC. So that's when like the whole world was instituted. It was, you know, what do you say? It was very clear that the climate was a problem. The science was correct. It was now out in the open. So the UN started this in 92 and said we have to turn the emissions around. And since then you can see what happened. This curve has been very stable. It has just been going up. And of course in 97 we had the Kyoto Protocol. You can see in this curve there's no sign of that. And we also have the Paris Agreement in 2015. The curve just keeps going up. And then, of course, we had the pandemic. And there's hardly a dent in the curve. So this is a very stable curve. But it's interesting to go behind the curve and see, well, what is in this curve? We know we're emitting about 50 gigatons of CO2 equivalents per year now. And we know that the climate is a big bathtub, right? So we all know this. The bathtub is being filled. The faucet is on full. Just keeps pouring in. And we're approaching the limit. So if we keep going like this, then we know that we're going to end up in very bad territory. 4 or 5 degrees by 2100. And we know, we've read about all the effects, all the impacts on our natural systems, on our weather patterns, on the sea levels, and all these things. This is not my role to talk about. But the interesting thing is to look behind this and see, well, what happened? When I quit business school towards the end of the 90s, I was quite slow. I wasn't a very good student. But when I quit and entered the workforce, that's when they started talking about China. So towards the end of the 90s, basically Europe started deindustrializing. So deindustrializing meant that emissions were going down in Europe. Up until then, all the emissions had been very much the Western industrial expansion. So now it was being taken over by China. So China, since the mid-end of 90s, have, 40 doubled their GDP. It's incredible. They're now by far the leaders in emissions worldwide. They took the old Western industry model, old industry, and took it to a scale that we haven't seen before. The US have declined a little bit since then, but China has. And of course, China is a fantastic example. They created wealth, they created growth, they created higher living standards for all their, billion people. And this is what the world needs to do. We have to have better living conditions for all our people. But we can't do it the way China did, and we can't do it the way Europe did or the US did. It's completely obvious now that marginal change is no longer relevant. So I'm happy to know that Thailand has this biocircular, green, climate-smart strategy. And that is, if we really look at those words and take them seriously, this is really what we need. We need systemic turnaround solutions now. We have to bend this curve. And we have to do this together. The whole world has to do it together. Now it's Sweden and Thailand. And we can do something. We can do something big. So let's talk a little bit. That was a bit about the climate. Let's talk a little bit about the city. So the city looks like this. So this is what we've grown to know as being a city during the 1900s. And this doesn't work anymore. This is a congested concrete cancer. It is depleting the natural ecosystems, and it's causing great emissions into the climate. This used to be kind of something that you looked at in USA when I was a kid. My father is American, so I used to go to Chicago, where my family was. And it was a beautiful sight. You saw this concrete, enormous, the high-rises, the bustling urban landscape, and you were thrilled. This was better than Sweden because it was so big. And the shopping malls and all this. It was a good feeling. But now we know that this is not the way to go. We have to do something different. And it's about this kind of awakening. So the building sector in total accounts for 40% of all global emissions. That's including the energy for heating and cooling and power and construction and the material excavations and all these things. Today we're not going to talk about all of that. That is very big. We're going to talk about a part of that. We're going to talk about the materials. And we're here at SCG, so it's very fitting to talk about the materials. So the materials account for about 10, 11, maybe 13% of all global emissions. And that's mainly, of course, cement, steel, aluminum. Also some plastics and so forth. But that's a lot. That's 10%. And the last point I want to talk about the cities. I want to say, well, what is happening now? We're looking at a huge urbanization. We think we've had a very big urbanization up to here, right? But we're looking at a doubling. And we're looking at a doubling in very, very short time frame. So up until 2060, the projections now from IEA are that we're going to double all of the world's built environment. And these are the projections per area in the world. So you can see Africa, of course, is at the top. They haven't urbanized in the way that the rest of the world has. But you can still see that there's a lot of urbanization, a lot of building that will be going on in all parts of the world. And this equals to about building one Japan every year. So it's just enormous. It's beyond comprehension. And everybody can understand that if we have 10% of all building 10% of all emissions comes from the materials for building. And we're going forward with a doubling now, up until 2060. We need radical innovation. Again, marginal change is not relevant. Making some things a little bit better is not relevant. We need a complete turnaround solution. That was a little bit about the city. Now let's talk a little bit about the forest. So forest buildings tend to be more people are aware of cities and buildings, but not a lot of people are aware of forests. But of course, everybody knows about the destruction of the natural forest, of the rainforest and so forth. And that's something that everybody feels very strongly about, rightly so, and so do I. So this is basically what has been going on in the forests ever since industrialization. And so since industrialization, we've lost about 1/3 of the world's natural forests. 1/3 is gone. Of the remaining forests, 60% are degraded. And I won't get into exactly what degraded means, but we have forest experts with us here from Thailand, from Sweden. If anybody wants to ask about that, feel free. It can mean a range of different situations, but it's not good. Degraded is a very bad word. So 60% of remaining is degraded. Since the start of industrialization, I would say that the deforestation, or as it is called, land use change, accounts for about 30% of all emissions. Everything in the bathtub, 30% comes from the destruction of the landscapes, of the forests. So we need to bring that back. If we want to empty the bathtub, we need to bring the forest back. So at this point, everything feels pretty dark and gloomy. We've talked about the climate, the very stable curve, but underneath that curve, it's very fluctuating depending on which regions are industrializing and so forth, but still. It's a very grim picture. We're talking about the gray concrete cityscape that is extremely carbon intensive. And we've talked about the destruction of our natural ecosystems. So now we have to get into something more positive. What can we do? So let's look at the forests and the city in a different way. This is a map that was developed about 10 years ago by the World Resources Institute. And it's actually a colleague of ours in the Eco-Innovation Foundation who took the initiative. He had been going around visiting a lot of forest areas in the world. And he had seen that there are all these areas of devastated forest landscapes that were not used, that were just left. There weren't much happening there. So he was interested in how much landscapes could be restored without infringing on agriculture and without infringing on human settlements. And this is what they came up with through satellite surveillance. So they came up with this map, and this totals, these are the green areas, the yellow areas, and the light green areas, are restoration potential. So these are areas where people don't live, or at least can have more trees without competing for settlements or for agricultural lands. This totals to 2 billion hectares. That's 1/6 of the world's land area. This is one of the big opportunities that we have as a climate solution. And this can be restored to benefit for everybody, for the people who live there, who are often caught in a poverty deforestation cycle, slash and burn, wood for cooking, that kind of thing. If we can restore these forests, these landscapes in different ways, of course with the people, through local control of their lands, everybody will benefit, not the least the climate. And instead of this, of course, we could have something like this. So this is the future of building. Bio-based, green, and nice to live in. And it won't even go into the traffic situation. That's something we can talk about another time. But there are solutions. This building is just one example. It's net climate positive. It generates its own electricity, its own heating and cooling over the year. And it's built in balance with nature. And people love to live here. And this is actually a low-cost rental. This is not for the rich people. Just one example, but you will hear much more from my colleagues that are here today that know more about this. We have architects and we have wood building experts. So, but this is the opportunity on the building side, on the city side. And I see my time is almost up. But this is, I'll end with this. So to make this happen, we need a new industrial system. We need to break away from the prevailing system that we have, that we're caught in. We need to create something new. And it needs to be integrated. It needs to be systemic. We can't just think about buildings and then try to say that, well, we want them to be certified. We have to go all the way back and see, well, where is this stuff coming from? So we have to talk about the forest. And in the middle, of course, we need it. If we want to have a forest-positive industrial system, and if we want to have this kind of wood building going into scale, then we need to bring about a new industry in between. And we have the clues. We've done this to a certain extent in the Western world now. In Sweden, Sweden is one of the leaders. We're not alone, of course. All the other Nordic countries, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, are moving ahead. And we'll hear more about this later, so I won't go into this. But it's very interesting. The model is evolving. Innovation is happening. This is the time to start working with this. And this is another way to look at this system, where we can see that just schematically we need to integrate the whole landscape, not just talk about plantations for a certain purpose. But we know now that we can generate new natural forests. We can restore the natural forests and do it through the timber value. The timber can be excellent as an industrial input, even from natural forests. But we have to do it right, in a positive way. Organize smallholders. I want to point out the smallholders there with the little hats on. Very important to do this with the people. And this is a huge opportunity, of course. And we'll hear, after me, we'll hear an example from Sweden, where we have we have an experience over 100 years of small forest owners that have become rich because they became timber suppliers. And so we have to integrate the whole landscape. We have to think about also the natural forest. We have to think about the industrial system that also creates energy. It can create biochar. It can go into enhance the farming soils. So this is an industrial system, and coming from Sweden, there's a lot of criticism now about the forestry that it has become much of a monoculture, going too far in that direction. So it will change. It will need to change and become more diverse. So there are a lot of learnings now from Sweden. We've already heard how successful the industry is. I'm happy I don't have to go into that. I could otherwise. But it's interesting to see what to learn from. It's often not the successes, it's much more the mistakes. And Sweden has made a lot of mistakes during the past 100 years. It's really something to learn about. And now, of course, with the internet and everything, we can learn from all over the world. And this is what we need to do now. This is the big Apollo project for our time, to turn our cities into green, bio-based, and to turn the landscapes into something that is restoring and reforesting. And this is the industrial system. We need to do it as a systemic turnaround solution. And with that, I think my time is up. Correct? Yeah. I could talk more, but I'm not allowed to. But I'm happy to leave to the next speaker, and I'm very interested in talking about this more and hearing from you and so forth. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaplan, to talk about the city, the forest, the landscape, and the resort timber landscape. All right. For not interrupt your time, who would like to have a translator device? Please go to pick up at the register area in front of the seminar hall. แขกผู้มีเกียรติท่านใดนะคะที่ต้องการหูฟังเครื่องแปลภาษาไทยนะคะหรือภาษาอังกฤษค่ะสามารถลงไปรับออกไปรับได้ที่จุดลงทะเบียนด้านหน้านะคะ For the next presentation on the story of Swedish forest industry and Södra from poverty and deforestation to doubling the forests, world leading producer and building cities in wood, from Mr. Bladh, the Vice President of Sales Södra. Please a round of applause to welcome Mr. Bladh on stage.
Savadikap, and thank you. I will tell a little bit about our Södra story. It's a fairly old company. It was founded 1938. So this year, I do think 85 years old. And how it was founded, it was more or less like South Swedish forest owners was thinking that, we have to join together and add value, not only selling logs. Then the journey started more or less. So the journey started, in fact, not with sawmilling. They joined together and made tar and turpentine at that time. At that time, I do think I move a little bit forward. I don't know if you could see this area here. It's where our forests are. At that time, it was a fairly poor area because you didn't have really good soil for agriculture. What they had, more or less, it was the forest land to live on to some extent, but not like the very south part. There you have very rich agriculture land. So they have to fight a lot. And then it was the forest and try to take better care of it also. And if you go back in time, in fact, I do think 100 years, in that area also, it was deforested quite a lot also. So you had more or less bushes. You use quite a lot of forest also for making glass factories. And also, in fact, so it was quite bad. And I don't know the story 100%. But it was also about the Swedish king, and the government said that if you have to plant, so people were sent out to plant forest, and that's what we gain quite a lot of value today. The big difference in between Södra company and quite a lot of other companies is that, like I told, quite a lot of small forest owners are the owners of the company and also have a fairly big industrial part today. And if you look into it, you can see here a little bit about the production for the sawmilling. But in this area we also have pulp mills that we utilize our own forest more or less. And if you look into the products we are making today, it's house building, also for high-rise nowadays. Since a couple of days ago, we also have a CLT factory for high-rise buildings. We make biodiesel and biomethanol used for cars, driving cars, paper for tissues. We produce electricity, and also we use quite a lot of birch, not only pine and spruce for house building and furniture. We use quite a lot of birch also to make pulp for making viscose. So you make clothes out of the forest today. And as I said, nowadays we are fairly a lot of forest owners, 52,000. And we try to be climate smart, whatever we've been doing. So a little bit Södra in figures. Nowadays 2.8 million hectares are the member area, 52,000 members, 3,100 employees, 3 pulp mills, 8 sawmills, and the wood we do consume, it's 8 million cubic meter. And the assignments done for the forest owners is that promote profitability to make business with the forest for the owners. But it's also quite a lot. Myself is in fact one of the small members. So I got quite a lot of help from the company also to run my own forest in a sustainable way with biodiversity today, and also about logging, plantation, whatever I need as a help also. And here you could see what is the raw material. It's timber, building systems, pulp, but also, like I told, liquid products and energy. And today I could tell you a story also that in Sweden what's quite good, it's also that it's not only about the sawmill industry, but also government and the local governments build quite a lot of energy plants for local heating, and also in the small village. So you use quite a lot of, no more gas, coal, oil, or they use biomass from the forestry quite a lot. So you have an infrastructure today in Sweden also that you take care of the leftovers. So also for me it's a big difference when me and my granddad was out in the forest. My granddad always told me, it's one birch too much in each prefecture, but that is not the issue today. Because he was thinking that only pine and spruce that you could build something with, it's that you should have in the forest. But nowadays you use everything, every molecule more or less from the forest. Also like you have this biomass infrastructure in the whole Sweden more or less, using the biomass from the forest industry. And if you see what Södra generate, it's assets and resources, and we create quite a lot of work for a lot of people in the area where we are, as well as, like told, CO2 help also to reduce the CO2 in Sweden and in the world. And in fact, it's not too much of the things we produce today used in Sweden, for sure. Quite a lot of house building is made out of wood. But we do nowadays also export a big part of the total. So we do export about 80%. Destination for the products, you could see Sweden still quite big part, but 60% is go to Europe. And in Europe, if you look historically, it has been quite deforested because of, yes, you build a lot. Look at Holland, Germany, whatever. They cut down the forest but didn't replant. So now we do have, yes, we are a big exporter to those countries for house building today because they historically were deforested. And also if you look into UK, in fact, it's a big market in UK because they don't have any forest anymore. Asia, you can see 14%. Asia, it's a mix of for house building, but also for furniture. A big customer for that. And here you can see a little bit about the flow. Everything from, yes, seed to final product. So nowadays we do have also breeding stations for plants. So me, like a forest owner, could go to that. So I do think we produce nowadays at our breeding plant school, I do think we make something like 60 million small plants every year. And then for sure it's quite a lot of research also at that place to make better plants, more sustainable plants for bugs, insects. Yes, and for sure for better timber also at the very end. And then you could see you have the own industry. We produce more energy than we use nowadays. So in fact we are today Sweden's largest producer of green electricity, because also where we have the biggest industries, we also have good spots for windmilling. So we have windmills there at those spots because it's along the coast side. And like told before a little bit, we create value from the forest. Processing, yes, one is sawn timber for furniture and house building. Pulp for making tissue, and nowadays it's not that much newspaper pulp or for printing anymore. It's mainly for napkin, tissues, diapers, and you could make a lot of things out of the fiber from the tree. In fact, biofuel become a very important part of the total business concept, I could tell. Like biodiesel, biomethanol, and also that I told before for the heating plants around Sweden, the biomass, bark, and the leftovers. And here it's a little bit about climate benefit, what you could make out of 2,000 cubic meter sawn timber. You can make an 8-story apartment building, plus then get biofuel for 2,300 kilometers, 25 years of consumption of paper, 30 years of consumption of textile, 9 years of heating with district heating, 6 years of electricity, and added value then for 128 people. And every 4 hours, an 8-story houses grow up in our members' forest. So it's recyclable. And Södra's climate effect, forest carbon stock 5.8, substitution effect 9.4, supply emissions, for sure we emit something also. So yes, we do quite good also for about the climate effects. Yes, and in general then, we working quite a lot also with new innovations to make it profitable, even more profitable for the forest owners, and look quite a lot into new products. Innovation, yes, it's key for the future. And I will have a look here and see which new things we are looking in innovation and new products. As you could see here, you could make quite a lot of also new products out of the raw material, the timber. Lignin, we're looking into. The latest I heard that in the research is also like, yes, for new electrical cars you need batteries, but one of the products could be supply the carbon inside the electrical car batteries. So it's quite a lot of innovation going on. And I do know you could even probably make even more vehicle fuels out of the lignin. And like told before, from the cellulose, the latest year, 10 years, we didn't produce anything for making viscose, but now we are running 2 lines, I think, using only birch. So it means also like today, for me, also like a forest owners before, you were very keen not to have too much birch in the forest. But nowadays, yes, it doesn't matter what's grown. You have a usage of all what you have in the forest, also the birch. Before it was only firewood. When my granddaddy ran the forest, he said, oh, it's only good for firewood. But then now you make clothes out of it, and I do know it's ongoing also that recycle old clothes, mix it with our new produced pulp and make new clothing again. So I do think it's quite good things. Like in the and what we try to do is increase the amount of forest raw material in the products of the future. Like I told, biofuel, biomethanol, diesel, the clothing. But now the latest is also before a little bit tricky to build high-rise buildings out of because you weren't allowed. I do think maximum 2-3 storage. One was about the fire, and also about. I do think we have some engineer here in the Swedish team also that it's also about you can't really do it because you get too heavy loads. But nowadays you could make then cross-laminated timber and in fairly big slabs, and it's strong and very good also for fire, not to catch fire too easily. Could be even better than steel, even if you don't believe it. So now I do think the highest buildings in Sweden is built like 18, 19 storage, perhaps, and they are looking to build even higher in high-rise also. Like told before, new solutions from the forest. Try to use every molecule of the tree to do something good with it. And yes, development of new and existing, yeah, like before that. Here is again a little bit about the biofuels we produce. Biodiesel from pine oil, biomethanol, and we do mix in some of this in the existing also, like I do know nowadays, like petrol, you mix in some ethanol into the petrol also. And as you see, we have been doing fairly good the latest years also regarding profit, investing in our forest, in new products. Okay, I do think it's all, I think. This is something about... I do think it's time to wrap up and say thank you to everybody for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bladh. We got useful knowledge about your speech. Yeah, thank you. For the next presentation is the last presentation before we have discussion panel. The session is about value chain innovation model for forest restoration from Mr. Berty van Hensbergen, the partner of the Eco Innovation Foundation. Please give a round of applause to Mr. Berty, please.
Thank you. I was fascinated to hear of the 100-year history or 125-year history between Sweden and Thailand in the forest sector. When I was a young boy 60 years ago, Thailand then was a major timber exporting country, supplying timber from its own forests. Sadly, many of those forests have disappeared and been replaced by other land uses, and that really has led to the end of the Thai forest industry to a large extent, although Thailand is still a major timber processing center using timber that is imported from other countries. I'm going to talk now about the tropical forest industries and tropical forest management. And the reason why Thai forests and forestry, I think, failed in the long term is that the business model for tropical forest management is effectively broken. Of every tree that is cut down in a tropical forest, only about 10% of the wood that is felled in the forest actually ends up in a durable product at the end of a value chain. The buyers of timber can only buy standard dimension timber, usually large dimensions, as you can see in the picture on the left-hand side here, and the sellers of timber can only sell these standard dimension boards, and anything that doesn't fit into those standard dimensions is wasted because it can't be sold on the market. So we have major problems that make it very difficult for tropical forest management of natural forests to be profitable. There are further restrictions in the number of species that can be sold, with only a very few species taken selectively from tropical forests, which results in a very short number of rotations. In the tropical forests, although they have trees, they have no commercial value. As a result of all these factors, it means that there is very little investment, in fact, almost no investment in forest management. And because of the structure of the value chain, there is no communication between the forest and the final customer of the forest product. That means that the final customer doesn't know what the forest can provide, and the forest doesn't know what the final customer wants. But silvicultural management in forests can enhance the value of forests significantly. The forest on the left-hand side here is in Chile. It's a 40-year-old stand that was never managed. It has trees that are of poor stem form, they are bent, they are thin, and they are of very little value. That's 40 years. The same species in a managed forest are in the picture on the right. These trees, however, have been managed, they have been thinned, they have been pruned, and they are 7 years old. That forest is going to have enormous value in the future. So, what are the impacts of forest management? The orange bars here reflect the proportion of different products that you can get from an unmanaged forest that is about 50 years old in Chile. The most valuable logs are those that can be used for sliced veneer, and they only count for about 3% of the total volume. Most of what is sold from unmanaged forest goes to pulp chips, and pulp chips are the lowest value product from this forest. However, if you manage the forest by selective thinning, you can increase the value of that forest enormously. A managed forest at 50 to 60 years will have 30% of the logs being the highest value slice veneer, and only 30%, only half as much as the lowest value product, being pulp chips. If you look at that in terms of the net income from the forest, then the sliced veneer in the managed forest is an enormous earner of income, but in total, if you look at the total mix of products, in the managed forest you have $116 per cubic meter. In the unmanaged forest you have only $51 per cubic meter. So the management of the forest has increased the per cubic meter value of the products enormously. But silviculture also increases the growth of the forest. If we thin the forest, we can, and manage it properly, we can increase the growth rate of the trees. Now this is a rather poor example, but even with this rather poor example, you have a significant impact. In this example, this is a stand that was thinned at age 40. Now, normally we would say, well, there's no point at all in thinning a stand that has already reached age 40, but in fact, a 50% thinning more than doubled the growth rate of this forest from about 3.8 cubic meters per hectare per year to 10 cubic meters per hectare per year. So that if we now look not only at the increase in value due to the product mix, but also the increase in value due to the increased growth rate, the total value now of our managed forest goes to $1,196 per hectare per year, up from $195 per hectare per year in the unmanaged forest. So investment in management has the potential to increase forest value enormously. This management involves cutting trees. Those trees give timber, and that timber needs to be used and needs to be introduced into the tropical timber value chain. In the past, we've only been interested in logs that were more than 60 centimeters in diameter. Now we will have to start working with logs that are 15 to 20 to 30 centimeters in diameter, because those are the dimensions of the trees that have to be removed in order to manage the forest, to increase the value and to increase the growth rate of the forest. So we need a whole new tropical timber industry with all of the new products that are going to be developed for that industry. So active restoration management produces timber. It produces timber by silvicultural thinning, competitor removal, the trees, the bent trees that have to be taken out. We also have to find uses for those. And we also need to find uses for all of the species that we thought were of no good before. The trees of less desired species all have to be entered into our new value chains in order to produce a whole range of products that we're going to be using for our wooden city building. So this is our vision for natural forests in the long term. We restore them by selectively removing some trees to end up with a forest that has more big trees, that has greater volume than it does today, so that it has captured and stored more carbon in the forest. We have to use the entire tree rather than only the 10% of the tree to produce a massively increased range of products, including byproducts such as biochar, electricity and heat, charcoal for cooking. This is in Africa very widely used. We have to add value by locally drying timber. We have to add value by lamination, by specific sawing for specific products, all of which can then be used to make all of the products that we need in order to build our wooden cities. Good silviculture also adds value in plantations. Now, we favour the use and restoration of natural forests because of their biodiversity and ecosystem services impacts, for which they're highly positive, but we also recognise that plantations are a very efficient way of producing large quantities of uniform products for introduction into industries. These pictures here are of two teak plantations. The one on the left-hand side is a 40-year-old timber plantation that was never managed. And as a result of that, the trees here are bent, they are small, and as a result of that poor management, the value of that teak stand at age 40 is about $2,000 per hectare. This is a teak stand about 5 kilometers from the first one, which has been well managed since it was planted. This stand is 7 years old. I believe that at 32 years old, this stand will return about $180,000 per hectare as opposed to the $2,000. So whatever we do, we need to invest in proper forest management, good forest management, both in our plantation sector and in the natural forest sector. There are new plantation models that are available to us, both specifically for indigenous native species. This is my friend Luis in his plantation in Guatemala, where he is using a mixture of 7 species of high-value trees, mahoganies, and so on, to produce a mixed species, more diverse stand than would be possible in a monoculture stand of native species. But also, because he is using a mixed species stand, he reduces the impact of a number of pest species that sometimes attack monoculture stands. If we look at Thailand as a whole, and we look in more detail at the restoration map that Aaron showed us earlier, in Thailand as a whole, we have 17 million hectares that have been identified as being suitable for mosaic restoration, whereas 9 million hectares have been identified as wide-scale restoration. Wide-scale restoration means producing a natural forest of the same type in a large area. Mosaic restoration is an integrated landscape with a number of land use types and forest types in a single landscape. So here's a picture of what we think a forest mosaic landscape should look like. We have native forest for biodiversity, biodiversity reserves, areas for agriculture, areas of managed natural forest, and areas of plantations, all in the same landscape. This example is from Mozambique, all of them supplying a central village with wood processing facilities derived from the timber and so on from the 36,000 hectares that is within that 10-kilometre circle. The picture on the left is what we believe this looks like. These are teak plantations set in a matrix of native forest, and we have the agricultural land here at the top of the hill where it is cooler. So that is the kind of mixed forest landscape that we believe produces the mix of environmental services and timbers that are possible from a restored and managed forest landscape. We also need to change the way that the industry works. The entire value chain needs to be re-engineered. The old-style value chain at the top here uses only a small part of the tree. There is an enormous amount of waste because they are only allowed to cut the standard dimensions. The local sawmill does, again, waste about 70% of the wood volume because of the restriction on standard dimensions. And the final manufacturer is making very small amounts of volume, about 10% into the final product. In that value chain, the total value created from that one tree was $3,000. If we take the same tree and put it through a value chain where everything is properly used, then we get additional income in the forest through using more wood and creating charcoal. That increases their slice of the pie. In the sawmill, we have biofuel as a byproduct, but we also have a much bigger range of higher value products so that their income now increases very substantially. And we have the final manufacturer, because he's only having to buy the exact volume that he needs because every piece of wood is the right size for him. He reduces his wastage and reduces his costs, and he also makes more. The total value created from the same tree has gone up threefold. And that's what you can do if every actor in the chain knows exactly what product is required at which point in the chain and is able to saw with high efficiency and high precision to the right dimensions. So what are the opportunities in the forest sector that we need to grasp to make this a reality? Well, we have the opportunity for the creation of a much higher value forest that captures and stores more carbon and has higher biodiversity than what is there at the moment through proper management. We can create restored natural forests and plantations on suitable areas where agriculture is marginal. We can create many new businesses and new jobs in the forest and the city in the entire city building value chain. And we can create wooden cities that use less energies and store carbon. And finally, what does it mean for Bangkok? Well, we looked at where would Bangkok get its wood from if it was going to build a wooden city and replace everything in Bangkok by 2050 at some new site because of the risk of Bangkok being lost due to rising sea levels. And we've drawn a circle of 150 kilometers radius around Bangkok because 150 kilometers radius is an optimum economic radius for providing timber into sawmills and processing plants and then back into a building area. If we replace Bangkok entirely by 2050, we need to house 664,000 people every year. In order to do that, we would need 5.3 million cubic meters of wood every year in order to build all those buildings, and it can all come from within that 150-kilometer circle if we fully restore all of the forest area with a mixture of the wide-scale planting and the matrix planting that would be required. That gives us 6.1 million cubic meters per year. I have to say that it takes some time for that to come on stream, and it's longer in the natural forest than in the plantations, so that initially the supply would have to come from plantations, but increasingly as time goes on, that timber supply will come from natural forests that are required for the biodiversity and ecosystem services. And there I shall leave it. I've exceeded my time by 42 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Berty. It is very useful information to sharing about the integrated value chain of forest management. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Right now, we will come to a panel discussion on the topic from a nation rags to a nation rich of forest, a how-to from Swedish model. During we are set up the stage, I would like to inform you when you have a free time, we have very interesting exhibition in front of the seminar hall. Please, you have a time for a visit after the break. You will see a Woodlife Sweden exhibition produced by Swedish Institute and Architect Sweden. You will see a plant toys company with a main concept, a sustainable world of play. You will see a regional community forest training center or RECOFT, the project about Tree for All, and we will see the innovation of sustainable forestry for better environment and better living by SCG and SCG packaging. And now I would like to invite our honorable speakers on stage. Once again, Mr. Aaron Kaplan, Director of Eco Innovation Foundation, Mr. Bladh, the Vice President of Södra, and Mr. Berty van Hensbergen, the partner of Eco Innovation Foundation. Also, I would like to pass this stage to Assistant Professor Dr. Sang San Phumsathan from Kasetsart University, who will be our moderator for today. Please.
Sawadika. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this opportunity to invite me for these discussion sessions. After we listen to our guest speaker, 3 stories about Sweden, she's rich stories. I'm going to talk about rich story. But you know, in Thailand, we have long histories about timber products, and since we face the problem of forest colonialism in Thailand since the King Rama V, that in the colonialism that time, and we face a lot of problems about wood products and like timber productions. And after this, we thinking about how to make like sustainable. At that time, we didn't call it sustainable forest, but we facing about a lot of problems about our forest is very like in the situations of destroys according to that situations, and we attempt to set the policy, and we call it policy that closed forest after like logging was banned since 1982 something that time. So and after that, all forests, national forests closed, and if you cut the forest in the national forest, it's called illegal action. And that time, after that, we attempt to how to set the situation that you call sustainable development or sustainable forest. And all of you inspire us a lot about the story from Swedish model, talk a lot about tangible value of forest and also intangible values of forest, and how to set this situation for the lesson learned to Thailand that we can apply for forest management in Thailand. Especially how the first question after we listen a lot about your story, how to inspire our government to change preservation forest, sorry about that, to like sustainable forest in terms of economic values. Who's gonna be? Yeah.
Okay.
Is this a rude question? I don't think so. Okay.
I can start
Okay.
and then leave over to more forest experts to my left here. First of all, I would like to say that this situation is common all over the world. I mean, everywhere we look, there has been the destruction of tropical forests, not just tropical. Of course, in Scandinavia, we had this going on just 100 years earlier. And the reaction often is to ban logging. Of course, a completely natural reaction. But where we are today, of course, we know that just banning or just preserving isn't good enough. The forests, of course, in a 1,000-year perspective, can grow back. But we also have a situation today where the climate is coming in and changing very rapidly. So today we're really stuck in a situation where we as humans have to manage nature. That's our task for this time. So to inspire the government, I think, to not be afraid to work through local people who retain their control over their lands, but to really try to put in place policies where you could more rapidly lead to restoration of natural forests. And you can combine a lot of values, just like Berty was explaining. You know, we can combine timber values with ecosystem services and biodiversity. We have this knowledge today. And we know that even in Thailand, there is this knowledge.
Yes, according to our policy about BCGs, long time ago biodiversity in the forest is meaningless. We didn't talk about that, but this time we talk about BCG, biocircular green, and also we have to set the policy and make biodiversity more valuable. And the other problems is that how to convince the local peoples to see the values of biodiversity. When the government's officer go to the forest or local people and talk about biodiversity conservation, it's very difficult to explain to the local people how can we put the value on the biodiversity, but they stay with the forest, in the forest, and they use biodiversity all the time, but they didn't know that. They didn't notice the values of biodiversity. Based on your experience, how can we convince the local people to see the values of biodiversity, that they can realize they have the values of that, and after that make them more concerned about biodiversity conservation? So I know the first thing is that you have to make the local people see the values of biodiversity in terms of economic value. But now the government just say only you have to preserve that, you have to conserve that, you cannot touch them. Even though you collect the mushroom, wild mushroom from the forest, okay, you maybe get the problem with the police, something like that. Sorry about my question. Okay, maybe,
I think I might take that, but to skip back, because I think it's important. I haven't traveled in Thailand this time. I did travel a bit 20 years ago. But in most of the tropical countries where I come to, there are large areas of abandoned farmland that are now in a successional stage of secondary forest, of natural forest regeneration. If that natural forest regeneration is managed, we can produce products from it which have value, timber products. We can also increase the growth rate of that forest so that it captures carbon faster. So that I think that there are enormous opportunities in managing these secondary forests. So that's the first part. Now, that will give the local people who live around those forests economic value from the forest management itself. So I think that is an important part of the value. I think that when we're talking about biodiversity, that is related to the direct kind of products that people, I think they understand that kind of biodiversity value quite well. It's the more remote biodiversity values, such as the biodiversity associated with the 10 million species of bacteria per square meter of soil, or 500 butterfly species that occur in that forest, that are much more difficult to capture as values for local people. But there are some of those types of values that it is possible to capture. For example, the importance of the natural biodiversity as a pest control mechanism inside their agricultural crops. If they are close to a forest, there are likely many more predatory insect species that control the... And that's the same also for people who are growing timber plantations. So that is also relatively easy to explain. And of course, the other ecosystem service that is of great importance for these local communities is water supply. And again, that is a biodiversity and ecosystem services product that is relatively easy to explain for them. The difficulty is in trying to monetize these values. It depends on having a willing buyer who's prepared to pay for that. Now, that has been successful in a very few test examples with, for example, city water supply, where cities are prepared to pay people living higher in the catchment some kind of fee for the water that they're getting from that catchment. But there's very little, there isn't really a properly developed market yet in biodiversity and many of the other ecosystem services.
Yeah, this is a problem in Thailand as well. We have to find a way that how can interpret to local people to see the value of ecosystem service. Back to the other questions to Södra. You mentioned a lot about partnerships, and Thailand, the other partner that can help or support reforestation in Thailand is that big landlord, rich person who own a lot of land in Thailand. How can you motivate this kind of person to grow up the forest in sustainable way instead of just keep it or make it like agricultural land in the future?
No, that is not an easy question, but because it's nearly the same issue in Sweden. That like small forest owner like myself, I have to have another work also. so you can't really survive on only the forest land if you are not a big forest owner, because then you have to. And here, perhaps you have a cycle, I only heard, I don't know the reality here in Thailand, but a turnaround cycle I heard here, it's 20 years, and it's a short time in Swedish mind, because the thing I plant today, it takes 80 years before you could make a final cut, and during that time, it's very less income. So it's in fact, I do think it's a tricky question to promote, to be honest.
Yes. I think it's very a difficult discussion questions according to the policy sometimes. In US, in US government have a policy about conservation easement. If the landlord, the big landlord grow the forest, you can reduce the tax. But in Thailand, if you own the land, like a big parcel land, and do nothing, you have to pay like a land tax very high. So it's quite a tricky policy. But if this thing, I'm going to pass these questions to the policy discussion later on in the afternoon session. Okay, very have a difficult question to discuss about that. According to the representative from our Royal Forest Department over there, maybe I'm going to pass this question to the discussion part in the afternoons about, is that possibility to change the policy to support that kind of things according to, or you mentioned about we need the partnership, maybe the government policy to support this kind of idea as well.
I do think so. It's the only way that governmental support, I think, also to support like industries around biofuel, whatever. It's a little bit like Berty discussing that you have to have some kind of a total value chain from the forest out to the final market. But take time, but probably have to be supported with the government also to encourage people and do things, and yes, perhaps also support the industry, new industries.
Yeah, the other question. Okay, can you have some
just say there's also fiscal policy issues that are involved. For example, I own a teak plantation in El Salvador along with some partners. Now, under El Salvador fiscal policy, the trees on that land actually have no value. I can't use those trees as a security for anything, even though their net present value at 10 years old is round about $45,000 per hectare. I can't use that capital that I've invested in growing for 10 years as any kind of fiscal security for getting loans to increase the size of my business. Now, so in some countries you can, and they'll give you a value for the trees on the land, but in other countries they don't. And I think that is something that is important for smallholders, because if they can then borrow against the value of the trees that they have planted, they can invest that in their sawmilling businesses or any other business they want.
Okay. This very difficult discussion question. Okay, in the afternoon, we'll see. We're going to continue to talk about this in the discussion part. May I back to the first speaker, Mr. Aaron? You talk something about complete turnarounds about perceptions and attitude towards forest management. Which part of the stakeholder that you think is very difficult to make them change their mindset or any attitude toward ecosystem service or sustainability things, even though SDG that we have to talk about that.
Yeah. I experience more and more that everybody is waking up. So it's not specific to any sector or government or academia. I think we're all waking up. Even in the most traditional construction sector now, fantastic things are happening. And even in the most conventional forest sector, things are changing. So I don't really see that there's a certain pocket of resistance somewhere. I think what we need to do really is to come together, because it's not possible to solve this only in the forest sector or only in the building sector. So what really enables innovation is coming together in the same room, also with policy. So government together with forest and construction can see opportunities together that they can't see by themselves. Just an example, and this might be a wild example, but and you can shoot it down if you want, but it's just a fantasy that I have. That if you take now the trend of wood building, they talk about wood building systems. Like you saw from Chris there, that this is a new business for Södra, is the wood building systems. And so all wood building is, it's like Lego, you know. So you have instructions and it's assembly, and you can do different things with these parts. If a construction company says we want to be super sustainable, we want to be in the new world, bending the curve, they could say, well, we want to control where our wood comes from, and we want to have a say in how it is produced, so they can support the model. And if they support the smallholders, the farmers, and the forest industry in the right way, they could actually go beyond, way beyond certification. And they can say, well, we're supporting a mosaic landscape where with a good influx of natural forests that actually protects and brings back the elephants or even the tigers. And if this building system embodies that, you could even call it the elephant-saving building system. You know, a construction company can take responsibility for bringing back nature.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
I also like to say, I think that there is a good degree of neo-colonialism involved in this in terms of what development aid has focused on in the aid that it gives to communities in forests. Because in the north, what's the forest for? It's for timber for cutting down trees. When you have a development project in the south, no, don't cut down any trees. We're going to help you have non-timber forest products and other things from the forest. So it's a complete different mindset about how you deal with local communities and helping them. You say, well, you've got to go and get your mushrooms and your orchids or whatever. Whereas in the north, we're using our forests as a major industrial raw material source. The reason I think that pine is so useful is not because it's an intrinsically better wood than any other kind of wood. It's because we have invested billions of dollars in research on how we can best use pine. If we had invested the same amount of money in some of the species that are available from your forests here, then we might suddenly find, well, actually they're a lot better than pine for an awful lot of things. So,
yeah, that means for completely turn around, we need national policies about reforestation planning according to the land how do you say, like a different land use in Thailand. So maybe the government this thing like you have to set the plan, like a national plan about reforestation according to the purpose of land use in each region in Thailand. And the other thing is that after we ban logging and you cannot cut the trees in national forest. One thing government say, you have to keep the forest, you have to keep everything green. If you see the red spot, we call red spot, according to forest fire, you have to make it clear. That means preservation forest. But the other thing, if you want local people or other people to see the value of forest, you have to make it the first step, you have to make them see the economic value of forest. It's quite conflict situation, right? It's quite conflict situation. So I would like to ask this question to all our speakers. How can we make it like a balance point or optimization point between the government policies and the local point of view? Maybe I will begin with you.
Okay. I think the answer is that you have to find in your policies a new balance point, which does allow the forest to have significant value to local communities, because if these forests have significant values for local communities, then they will look after them. If we sort of look at studies that have been done comparing protection forest with forest that is managed by local communities, there are good examples with adjacent protection forest and local community where the local community managed forest does better in terms of maintaining its area than the supposed protected forest. So that local communities with value, they are capable of protecting and managing those forests for their benefit. I think we have to transfer rights and trust to the people who live with those forests and to help them to ensure that they are able to take the values from those forests, because then they will look after them.
I think it's a big
And
challenge.
I could only fill in, since we are quite a lot of forest owners owning the company, and for sure, also me like a forest owner, I try to take care the best for the future value. But if it's, I do know, for example, I don't know if you heard about it in Canada. It's quite a lot of governmental-owned forest. Problem there is that, yes, the management could be so-so, because it's too big, and normally you have to take actions quickly also if you get some. So they have a problem with the red mountain pine beetle, more or less devastated millions of hectares because of killing pine forest. And in Sweden, you also have this kind of insect in this. But as a forest owner, you go out quickly and do some actions against it. Otherwise, you more or less destroy the value for yourself in the forest. So I do think it's very important that also the local people do, like Berty say, yes, take care of the forest, have the trust, and then it will be more well-managed forest for the future. Quite sure.
Okay, Mr. R. Yeah.
Yeah, and we see examples coming up now from different parts of the world where companies work in partnership with smallholder forest farmers, and it works very well. But it depends on exactly what has been said here, that they have to have a value, and if it could be possible for them to actually see this as capital that they can use for getting loans to invest and so forth, then we solve a lot of problems. So and policy has to be flexible here. It has to be adaptive. So policy has to be in the room with the company, producing the products, and the smallholders. They also have to be at the table, and we see business models coming up in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, and also here in Asia. That there's a lot to learn from. I think there's a lot to learn now to really go and look at these models, how they're working. So just last week, my colleague was in Kenya, and there was an example there where they had a company had partnerships with 30,000 smallholder farmers. These are very poor farmers in Africa, but they are getting values now from their trees, and they are getting support from the company and inputs from the company and help, and different types of. They have a phone application, where they can get support via an innovative app, that kind of thing, and it works very well. So there are a lot of opportunities.
Yes, it's the first step. Maybe the government or the policy, the partner have to think a lot about to expand the stakeholder from like business and local people and maybe local organization. But you have to, like you mentioned, you have to give them right and trust them for somehow that you make some negotiations with that problems. Okay, for this time, I'm gonna pass the questions to the floor. If you have questions or some discussion question, feel free to raise your hand and ask your question. Okay, I'm gonna ask a question. Okay, for I just tell the stories of my Thailand stories about the timber values. Long time ago, for my dad's generation, please don't catch my age. That time, if you create many generally in the northern of Thailand, you construct your house by wood, and the time passed. If you want to present yourself as a rich person, you have to construct your house by the concrete and a big house without teak or timber. If you use teak and timber, that means you're poor. And for this time, back again, if you construct your house with the timber, that means you're very rich, because now timber is very expensive in Thailand. And long time ago, when I was young, when we studied in elementary school, that time when we say about our national product to sell export to other country, thinking about teak, thinking about something like rice. But today it's changed, totally changed. 10% of our GDP is from tourism. Yeah, and the forest is just something is very difficult to say for sustainable forest management because they have some conflict situation about like preservation and conservation. And the problem is that if you want to support like sustainable forests in Thailand, how can we change like a closed forest or national forest? That how can we convince, back to the first question again, convince the government you have to create the value from national forest, just not only like protected them from nothing. Is that a difficult question? Do you understand?
I think the first thing from my view is that if it is a primary forest, there are so few primary forest areas left that those ones we do need to protect. So there are forests that we need to protect. However, there are large areas of forest that have been harvested in the past, that may be secondary growth natural forests. Those are the kind of forest areas that we should be managing. And as you say, a wooden house is now a rich man's house. That means that the person who's producing the wood ought to be a rich man as well. And I think that these people who live in forest communities producing those timbers should be getting rich from their timber. And I think that is the way, and I think the tourism is focused on the primary forest natural stands. You can do some educational ecotourism in managed forests to demonstrate how forests are managed and how that restores their biodiversity in the long term through a whole range of measures. But I think you need to optimize your value return from your large areas of secondary and degraded forests.
Okay, for some conclusions, for make rich forestry, you can make both tangible value and intangible value at the same time to convince people to see the value of forest. You have the questions? Okay, please. ขอไมค์ด้วยค่ะ ขอไมค์ด้วยค่ะ
Thank you very much for very interesting presentations. My name is Peter. I grow eucalyptus trees in Laos. So I do not work in Thailand. But I have some comments. We talked about smallholders, and Södra is impressive. Now, if we take Vietnam and Thailand together, I think we talk about millions of smallholders. Thailand has about 4 million hectares of planted acacia and eucalyptus. Vietnam has about 4 million. Thailand has about 1 million, I believe. And even if SCG is planting trees, most of this is planted by smallholders. And they see a value in the trees. We don't need to convince them. But that value is money. Nothing else. It's money. And they make money on eucalyptus trees in Thailand and money on acacia trees in Vietnam. So the thing is, though, in Thailand, they are not forest owners because eucalyptus is an agriculture crop. Now, how do we move this from the plantation industry, exotic species, to management of natural forest, which is interesting, but very difficult to do. And I think it really needs changes of policy. Because in Laos, and I think also in Thailand, but I don't know, then forest land cannot be managed by private people. It's up to the state. Now, and if we should get the farmers or smallholders to see a value in managing those trees, again, it's only one thing, it's money. If they make money on that, and forget about the non-timber forest products and biological biodiversity values, they come after. But if the farmers see monetary values, they will do it. Thank you.
Okay. Change forest like a money value.
No, and I could only agree. That is, in fact, why Södra was founded 85 years ago. It was to add value for the small forest owners. So, and then they joined together. So, yes, I do believe so. We're still alive and kicking 85 years later.
Maybe this topic maybe inspire landowner to set up their own forest to create the valuable property in the future. Yeah, you have some response?
I think it was a very, very good comment and question. And I agree that it is difficult. It's a whole different ballgame, of course. I mean, plantation forestry in the traditional way is its own sport. And then we have natural forest, and natural tropical forest is, of course, very much more complex than what we have up in Sweden. But nonetheless, we see these examples now, and we see examples from both sides. We have natural forest, tropical forest being managed for timber, a business model that we see working in different areas. We also see plantation companies going the other way, introducing more diversity, more native species, mixing eucalyptus and a set of different species, also working in outgrower systems with smallholders, and also initiating restoration of natural forest in and around their plantations. So over the years, creating more of a mix. And of course, I agree that the policy framework here is very important. That's pivotal to this kind of change. So policy, first and foremost, needs to understand what can be done in the landscape, both from the plantation perspective in those lands. What can we do with the degraded lands, to reforest and get them into a more better cycle, but also what can be done in the natural forest. So
maybe that's a good idea. We have to turn around again. Not just waiting for the national policy, maybe the local business, like small entrepreneurs, local people, can make some area that we call sandbox model to show the government that we can create the value from forest based on the cooperations between entrepreneurs, business sectors, and local, maybe local people work together, and maybe they can build something like a change the mindset of the government to see you can create a valuable forest, and after that, government can see something and change the policy later on. I'm just put some.
I think that's a very good idea. Yeah.
Just inspire, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I might say that we work in Rosie and I have an experiment running in Mozambique. Which is for the management of miombo, which is a particular kind of dry forest in southern Africa. That experiment breaks every single rule that is in place for protection of forest in Mozambique. They let us do it because the area we're working in is an FSC certified concession, and they trust the owners of that concession that they're not just simply going to cut down the whole concession. But there are these problems in policy and regulations. Minimum felling diameters mean that you're not allowed to do the silvicultural activities that you actually need to do to stimulate your forest to grow high-value species of the right kind. They don't allow you to selectively favor the species that have been removed by over-harvesting in the past. If you can't do silviculture, you can't restore the forest back to its previous level of biodiversity in terms of the tree species mix. So even if you are only working for conservation, if you're not interested in timber production, you still have to carry out activities that restore the forest to what it was before. You can't simply say conservation, okay, we don't touch the forest. That doesn't work. It doesn't work in Sweden, because in Sweden you end up with a monoculture of one particular species which has relatively low diversity over a large area of the country, and it doesn't work in tropical forests either. So even if you only have biodiversity as your objective, you still have to do silviculture in areas that have been degraded.
That means according to we want to change the like a forest or forest Thailand to be agroforest. That means we cannot cut the tree. That's a good idea. Is that you can select tree species for cutting and make it more like a healthy forest. And you can keep like a carbon stock or carbon sinks in the forest more. Just not keep it like nothing. It's a good, very good idea. And any question from the floor? I think Dr. Suwan gonna have good question. Okay, that's person. สวัสดีค่ะพี่ครับสวัสดีครับค่ะ
Okay ครับ and also for all and thank you very much for your very useful presentation in the morning. My name is Nak from the Forest Industry Organization from Thailand. For 25 years old, the Forest Industry Organization follows the Sustainable Forest Management Standard as FSC, and I think it came from your country, Sweden, right? And also that we are success in these standards for rural, that we have to opportunity to have get the better benefit from the standard, and also I think that we hope that to maybe to export our products to your country or the Europe, that is a very big market, and also follow as your standard for us as now. So could you please to help me about how do we to export our products to your country, or maybe to Europe as well? Maybe is can help us, or maybe you can comment what kind of the products that the Europe or your country need that we can done for yours. Thank you.
Okay, business deal.
This is a question for you.
But I do think that in fact furniture produced in Thailand, sent to Sweden or Europe, I'm quite sure, have to be furniture or something like that. Because as far as I do know, this I'm not very much into Thailand wood species, but I assume they are quite good for outdoor usage. So, for example, that they withstand weather better than the Swedish one, because pine and spruce is so regarding outside use if you don't treat them. That's what I'm thinking.
That's the direct opportunity. If we think a little bit more long term, it's an irony, really, that Sweden has, is like one of the biggest timber product exporters, since our forest grows so slow. We have a rotation period of 80 to 100 years. So we did a thought experiment a while ago before this trip, and we were looking at Thailand. Thailand has the world's best growing situation for anything, and especially for timber. So I think we found that you could completely compete and go beyond Sweden in terms of production in only 20 years. So it's and I mean, of course, then we can talk about the products and the different markets and so forth. But just in terms of general production of high quality timber. So if you just want to think in a very simple terms of export industry, there's a huge opportunity, and you just have to, learn the markets, and then of course see what you can do. But of course, we're here not primarily to talk about the export business, because we're seeing a world that is moving more towards, actually going less to the export model and more into internal resource dependency and internal markets. So like in Sweden now, we're moving into building cities out of wood, from our own stands. And I think to have that kind of industry, to not be dependent. Export, I'm not against trade. You know, I think export is great. It's been wonderful for many countries. But I think we're moving into a space now where we have to also be self-reliant. So trade, yes, but also self-reliance in terms of all, you know, everything: water, resources, energy, food. So building a good, high-quality internal market is for me, the most important thing when we talk about the forest.
And I do think you have one other aspect. I have no clue how it's working in Thailand regarding certification and how tested. Very important also, if you should use your wood species in house building, they have to have some grading, some certificates, strength tested material. Because in Sweden, for example, or in Europe, at all mills doing something for house building, that is very controlled, certified goods. So I do think it's also like you have to test the wood species you would like to use, so it's good enough for house building, and how much and which strength it has. So you have some kind of certification. Then you also for Thailand, I do think it's quite, I do know that also like China, they don't have any certification for house building. That you need that to be able to build good houses of good quality, and so they don't have problem that they suddenly fell down, if you do understand. So I do think second thing is that certify, check, quite a lot of tests. That's what I'm thinking.
Do you have any comment for this question?
Yeah, I think, as Aaron says, I think you need to make sure that you have a good, solid, internal market for your products, and that internal market, if it's well managed, will lead you to the quality improvements that enable you then to compete on export markets. And because the export markets are extremely demanding in terms of quality. And it's only through getting the experience with hundreds of workers working many years in the internal markets that then will lead you to being able to produce reliably and consistently the quality that is needed for the export markets. Also, if you don't have the internal market, you will never be profitable. You can't be profitable just on an export market. You need to have a significant internal market for the bits of the tree that you're not going to be using for the products that you're selling overseas.
Yeah, it's just great idea. The first thing is that if you want to export, you have to write up the standard and how to tell other people to know your standard. And for your furniture, so I confirm that you have to design the furnitures of teak, because in Thai it's just like a solid wood. You want to present very solid teak or something, but if you want to export, you need more like a design. And the other thing is that to make it more valuable, maybe you have to think about reduce the leakage instead of export. You have to think about internal markets in our countries, and how to motivate Thai people back to use like teak furnitures or timber furnitures again with the good design and good standards, as well as all the comments, is valuable comment that inspire FIO for do the homework later on. And I confirm that according to the answer, you have to plan ahead like a 20 years plantations in the futures, I think. Yeah. I think one more question. Last questions, the people over there, the guests over there. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your enlightenment today. My name is John. I'm from an aesthetic conservation project called The Sounds of Earth. As all three of you have mentioned, the conservation side, and also at the same time where you can manage the forest. My question is relating to, is there any change of paradigm when it comes to traveling, when it comes to tourism industry that is included inside the forest management? Is there any particular thoughts that you could share with us as we are a tourism country? Is there any other benefits that will bring to the table for being managing the forest? So, thank you.
I think he asked me. I don't know. Is that my question? Yeah.
I can ask, anybody can answer. Feel free, it's about traveling, so yeah.
I was just thinking like in Thailand, if you can't make some interpretation program like in Japan, they have like demonstration forest and allows other people to learn the history about logging in the forest. Maybe is the one thing that you can get the opportunity for tourism in Thailand, interpret long story about our forestry. And the other side, if you can manage landscape, like a beautiful landscape, you can make it like a tourism spot for people, and they can see how forests value themselves, either on tangible or intangible, like ecosystem service, and perceive and appreciate about nature, nature, beauty from nature. I think is very important thing that your question. Yes.
That's true. Yes.
You're a tourism country, and I know that there's an awful lot of foreign tourists, but I think there's probably significant potential for internal tourism as well, related to use of maybe newly created forests, even plantations. I mean, outside of Casablanca in Morocco, there is a 10-hectare pine plantation that has become the major picnic site for the city of Casablanca. It's used by hundreds of thousands of people every year. So there is that kind of tourism, but there are also, I think, potentials for very exclusive tourism. One of my favorite places, I lived in South Africa for 16 years, was a place in a sappy pine plantation near Sabi, where after a 15-minute walk through the plantation, you got to a little waterfall with a pond set in a little patch of natural forest where they had built a very simple shelter. They used this for honeymoon couples. Honeymoon couples could go there for a week, and all it was a simple shelter, and they could bathe in the little pond, and they brought up a box of supplies for them. They paid about $3,000 or $4,000 just to stay there on their own for a week as part of their honeymoon. So there is the rather simple but very high value tourism potential that you can do even with a tiny patch of forest.
Thank you.
But for Thailand, if we go honeymoon like that, after 1 week, maybe divorce, I believe. Okay. You want to respond something? Yeah, that's a good idea. That is just like we call like a niche market for tourism in wilderness area with good management of forest. You can enjoy and build up yourself like a stay with nature. It's a very good concept for, especially after COVID situation, people want to stay in the nature, like a nature retreat is very important during these situations after facing the COVID for a long term. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we like run out of time right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for distinguished guests. Thank you, moderator, and thank you, questioners.
I would like to say something. Thank you very much for this opportunity, for this session to inspire Thai organization and other people in this room to see Swedish model to make forest rich again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great session to start the day. Now we will have an hour long for have a lunch break. For all participants, your lunch will be settled on SCG hall number 3 and 4 behind you. And then afternoon session will be start at 1:30 p.m. Enjoy your lunch. Again, 1:30 p.m.